And we are back.
We are back, bumblebees.
This is going to be probably a series that ends our interview run. We are going to be cutting back on a lot of this and start doing this more as bonus content and not as regular content. And we have Matt Vincent on the podcast today. I'm very excited about this. I am a huge fan of your content.
Thank you, man.
And can you just tell them what you do?
Sure. I've done a variety of things. At this point, I'm really focused on, helping people unlock the best version of themselves, whether that's through awareness work or being able to build the habits that help them become who they want to be. And so I came from an athletic background, competed my entire life in a variety of things, and finally in the Scottish Highland Games, won a couple world championships there, and then got retired due to an injury and decided to refine identity and figure everything out on the back end. And then after that shift of sorting through it, realizing what I really wanted to be, what I want to do, and how do I take those skills from one chapter to the next and kind of continue with that process for the rest of my life. But I've started an apparel brand, Not Dead Yet, back in 2014. I've hosted a podcast, Not Dead Yet podcast, since 2017. I think we've done about 500 episodes.
Wow.
Something like that.
That's a lot. That makes us, that's a lot of content, dude.
It's a lot of content. It has been in that game for a long time. So what do I do? It's a bit of a sloppy definition, but what I like to say is I get to create for a living, man. Whether that is impact or experiences or apparel or content, I don't care. As long as I get to create for a living and leave a mark that leaves it better than I found it, I'm into it.
The Scottish Games, huh?
Yeah.
So
weird sport, huh?
No, it's not, because I am a fan, and I have been a fan of strongman, powerlifting, and bodybuilding my entire life, Scotland Games as well. And we actually have one that comes through the area every year. So that's very hard on the body. Like that, it's hard.
So it's not as hard as strongman or powerlifting is, right?
Okay.
Because slightly different sport with throwing and Highland Games. The thing I loved most about it, and also if we go back, like I competed in track and field in college at LSU, was on a scholarship doing shot put, discus, and hammer. So from that background going into the Highland Games, it's kind of like cheating. It's like you already have such a breadth of knowledge to go into it that it's really easy to translate. And then from strongman and powerlifting, the ability to build max strength and sports performance helped a ton when I got back into the Highland Games after a couple years away from throwing. But the big difference between those sports is the weights never change in Highland Games.
Okay.
So they don't ever get heavier. So you throw the same stuff the whole time. It's the same weights that have been thrown for 700 years that the sport's been around. So you have to get faster, be more explosive, and improve technique.
Okay.
So it's not just that raising bar of like, cool, I did 500, now I got to do 550.
Right. I saw that you were pretty heavy at one point.
Yeah.
Did that happen after your injury?
Yeah, I definitely got, I think the heaviest I was like 320 when I was doing strongman, kind of getting ready for a big show. And then I think after my injury and 6 or 7 of the knee surgeries, I'd gotten kind of sloppy as I couldn't really train and do much. And so it was time to sort that out.
Yeah, 320 and strong and 320 and not strong is two very different 320s.
I still looked a bit like I was made of memory foam in both forms, but one of them was really strong and the other one was rounder.
Yeah. So I found you on TikTok. So we've only been on TikTok for about a year.
Right on.
A little over a year. I guess at this point it's been like a year and 2 months. But I found you early last year because you posted a video where you talked about malicious intent. And I have it favorited. It's still it's been there since I found you on TikTok. But you are very, that was such an intense conversation. Like you could tell that you were speaking with conviction and not just talking to talk. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think that it's important to have a couple hard lines and boundaries, right? And I think boundaries get a bit confused with feeling like I need to defend them all the time with, you have to change because this is my boundary. Fuck all that. Am I allowed to say?
You can say whatever you want.
And what it comes down to for me is those are my boundaries to defend. Those keep me on task. Those keep me on point. And if you are not going to respect it, we don't have to operate. You're not obligated to change and make shifts to my boundaries. I don't want you to. I want you to do whatever's best for your life and your goals. If those align, great. If not, also great. I'm going to continue down this path. And malicious intent for me was, man, I can deal with people making a mistake, and I can deal with failure, and I can deal with fuck-ups from myself or anyone. And all of that's forgivable unless I feel like you operate with malicious intent. And if at any point I get a sniff that you operate with malicious intent, we're fucking done. We do not operate. We do not deal with each other because I don't trust it.
Right.
That means you believe your pursuit is more important than mine, and that possibly doing something to downgrade mine helps you. And fuck that.
Right. Yeah, because it's people using you as a stepping stone to get to where they want to go versus you guys climbing together.
Or even just trying to keep you back or make themselves feel comfortable. There's any number of reasons people do it.
Yeah. People definitely do not want to see people around them doing better than them. That's something that we've seen a lot of since creating the podcast.
Yeah, it's a real bummer.
It is, because everybody can thrive. There's enough of everything to go around that scarcity mindset is destructive.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to, right? Is I don't believe in scarcity at all. I don't operate with it at all. And so if that's the case, then why would I deal with someone who's purposely malicious? No way. What a drain on my energy.
Yeah. Your TikTok page says athlete, creator, coach, maniac.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate on that one a little bit?
Yeah, man, I like to go. I love the entrepreneurship side of things. I love getting to create, but also, man, this life is such a gift and such an honor to make the most of out of what we get in this really short, finite window of existence that we have. And I want to see all of it. I mean, I get to explore basically 0% of the universe. And even as much as I've got to travel, I've seen probably like none % of Earth if there was like a GTA tracker on the side telling me how much I've explored of the map.
Yeah.
But I want to see all of it. And that requires getting up and fucking going. That requires sometimes deciding that building my bank account's not the most important thing to me. And that's not what my biggest focus is. Mine's life experience. That's what's shaped me. That's what's forced me to grow. That's what's kept me excited and enthusiastic about the pursuit. And so Maniac is, I mean, you guys do apparel or do anything like that, right? So Black Friday being a big time for that and a lot of stress and everything else coming in that world. Last year, I got an offer to head back to Uganda to go work with a nonprofit that we're doing some work with, Fight for the Forgotten. And I got noticed like 5 days before Black Friday. Would you guys like to leave on Thanksgiving and come to Uganda with me and my number 2, Brant, my creative partner, and not be at the helm, for Black Friday? And we said, yeah, of course we do. This feels better. I've sold T-shirts before.
Yeah. So did you just let Black Friday go and not focus on that?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's awesome. So that's actually like speaking to your calling.
Yep.
We need to talk about that later too. Mm-hmm. We're going through something similar right now. We have a very big shift coming with the podcast right now, and it is more about calling and less about what we want.
Congrats.
So thank you for that. So you speak a lot on choice. Our content really aligns, you and I.
Everything that I've watched of your guys feels the same. So,
and a lot of the things that you talk about heavily is making decisions and choices and discipline and being in control of your fate. Right? Because that's how I view that. If you're able to dictate your life based off the choices you make, you are in control of your fate. Have you read Choice Theory by William Glasser?
I haven't.
Okay. So then where does your conviction with choice come from? Because it is very strong in your speech.
So mine came from my own personal experience, and it came from looking at becoming a Highland Games world champion, right? When I decided to get into that, no one's into that sport. Right. It's not like there's groups of people I'm going to go find in my town per se. So I got into it. And so I built a garage gym, and then I trained by myself for 8 years in my garage by myself. I threw in a field by myself 5 days a week, because I gave a shit. And it was those habits that I put in place. Like, I understood with the athletic side of things that there's so much I can't do anything about, which is, I'm not the biggest guy. I'm not the strongest guy that I compete with. Your average Highland Games pro, whenever I was competing, 6'3", 310. And I'm 6 foot, and at my best throwing, usually about 285, 290-ish. And so I can't choose my genetics. I can't choose any of those things. But what I can get really fucking good at is showing up. What I can choose to do is not be outworked. I mean, the cards can fall wherever they lie, but I want to know that I show up and I perform at my best when I say it's go time. And that takes practice. And it takes building the habit to show up whenever you say it's time to go. It takes getting used to that anxious feeling, the performance anxiety and everything else, and realizing that that tool shapes you as well. And so after injury, looking back at what built me, well, how do I apply that now to relationships? And how do I apply that now to my own personal growth? And how do I apply the same type of habit building to become who I want that way?
Do you have any questions before we move on? Okay, so this is a relationship podcast.
Perfect.
But I wanted to get all of that out first, because that is the reason that I reached out to you and asked you to be on the podcast, because all of that aligns. I'm not going to lie, I stalked the shit out of your page. I checked out your woman's page. Like, you guys are doing where we're trying to get in terms of the travel and the experience in life, but we dove into the podcast to get to that point.
That's awesome.
So we're doing that right now, but your relationship is a lot like ours, and you guys are fighting tooth and nail to keep everything the way it was in the beginning of your relationship. You can tell you're in love. You can tell that you guys are thriving together, and that you are not allowing the roommate phase to become a thing, and like, you are in love, right? And that it's a beautiful thing, and a lot of people take that for granted. They get that new lustful feeling, and then it fades, and they just kind of accept the reality versus living. So how is being a world champion at Scotland Games, and being an entrepreneur and an apparel line, and being parts of nonprofits, and then being a husband, how has that aligned for you, and how has all of that transferred over to your marriage?
So everything that's ever gone well for me is something that's gotten all of my attention.
Okay.
And so I'm done pretending that I have any amount of skill set to half-ass my way through success of anything. My previous marriage was 13 years and got a divorce, and I see where I fucked all that up. And it lost a lot of the attention. We fell into normalcy and all those type of things. And so going into this one, I'm not interested in those traps. And so that means that we continue to go out and have new experiences together and share new things so that we grow as a couple. Because a lot of big experiences you can go have just don't quite translate back third party. You can't come back and share what you felt at this retreat. You can't quite share what it felt like staying with a tribe in Uganda to your partner in your wonderful air-conditioned home and everything else. And so being able to grow and actually share those experiences has been really important to us, and we've kept it a priority. I mean, outside of that too, the priority is us. The priority is our fire. And so making sure that we set boundaries around that with sex or communication or anything, so that when I get home in the evening after a day of doing all these things, I disconnect from that side of my life and reconnect to this one, because that one's the gold.
Right.
Right? Like, that's the one that fuels the rest of it. So it has to be stoked every night. That fire has to be tended. It has to be cared for. It can't just be let and trusted that that fire keeps burning without someone watching it. Nothing works that way. And so we put our attention on it. We plan play nights together. We make damn sure that we're connected. And I'm fortunate enough to have a partner that feels the same way I do. I think it's really tough if you're not aligned on it.
Yeah. People don't realize that it's a lot easier to keep a fire lit than it is to continue to restart it.
Yeah.
You know, you ever watch Alone and those guys are trying to get their fire started and trying, and then they tap out because they can't get their fire started. And then when their fire goes out, they're like, okay, I'm done, because they don't want to do that again. So yeah, it's the same thing. You got anything?
No.
Okay. I don't want to just keep plowing over. So I'm going to continue to roll over here and check and make sure that.
Okay.
So would you say that you prioritize your relationship above everything else, and then the work and the nonprofits and all of that comes secondary to your life, because you said that that's the gold?
Yeah, I do. When I detonated my old life and decided this was the direction I wanted to go, like, this was a chunk of the fire. This was finding a partner that trusts me to become my best me. She's not interjecting a lot with these things that I want to do, whether that's business-wise or it's travel or build a van for us to stay in or any other number of crazy things I decide to do that don't quite make sense on paper.
We're doing that.
I love it. Have y'all done it before?
We're doing it now. Yeah, I just bought a 170-inch wheelbase Sprinter.
Same. That's the same one we got.
Yeah,
we got all-wheel drive. You get the same one?
Yeah,
Fuck yeah.
Mine's black, though.
All right,
and it's
cool.
got a To Be Better wrap on it so that people can see us while we're
Oh,
traveling.
that's great, dude.
We're currently using it as a toy hauler. So we're going to build from the wheel wells back to hold our dirt bikes, and then from the wheel wells to the back seat as a bed
Living quarter.
area. Yeah. So
Oh, dude, I love it.
be gross and sleep in the desert and have
Yo,
fun.
man, there's nothing better.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about being able to find each other in yourself when you kind of get out in that solitude that nothing quite replaces.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But yeah, having that as the priority, for sure. For sure. Otherwise, what the fuck am I coming home to?
Right. That's a good statement. That's a clip right there.
It is.
You said that you found a lot of your past failures, right? So there's a difference between blame and responsibility, right? And we can take accountability for our lives, and we can look at all the shortcomings that we had, or we can throw shade on the other person and make it all about them so that we can play the victim card. Mm-hmm. And to take that accountability and not throw shade is hard. It's hard for a lot of people because that's not being taught anymore. And you said that you found all of your past failures and owned it from your previous marriage. How did that look for you? Because a lot of people struggle with that.
So it was a lot of disconnecting my own ego and emotion from those past failures. Being able to look at it the same way that I looked at athletics, right? Like if I wanted to help you squat more and I said, hey man, let's bump your feet out a quarter inch and turn your heels out, you wouldn't say, no, this is how I fucking squat.
Right.
You wouldn't have some ego around it. So why would I feel that way around, man, maybe I communicated that poorly. Maybe I wasn't impeccable with my word. Maybe my partner doesn't understand the intention I had behind what I said. Maybe I got a hair carried away and too spun up and I spoke long before I fucking thought. Being able to recognize that, not only that, but being able to recognize, what did I miss? What was I so caught up in my own bullshit that I wasn't able to hold space, that I wasn't able to have the awareness of what my partner needed as well? What support did they have or get?
That's a big one. So from your previous to this one, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what were some of the things that you were able to realize? Because we have our own realities. The way you view the world is not the way your woman does.
Correct.
Your lived experiences are not the same. We don't view things the same way. We try to communicate our life experience so that we can understand each other's thought processes. But to go from maybe I wasn't there enough for them, what were you able to do in your life to step back and go, okay, in my next relationship, I'm going to make sure that I am attuned to the other person because they are half of your existence now as your wife?
I was really, really, really selfish in my previous relationship. And it's not that I'm not now. I am. I think greatness is tough. And so, in my previous relationship, I did feel this like I was the leader in the relationship and more of the, stereotypical masculine role, I guess, of needing to provide and be the driving force. And my former wife wanted a very different life than I did and was happy in that type of an existence. And for me, it just really wasn't the partner I was looking for. At least not anymore, right? Look, and it's kind of unfair because we got together when we were 22. We're fucking kids, man. We don't know shit. We have a bunch of information built on what we saw our parents do and how relationships are built and all these other type of things. But until you get to look at everything and take a step back and say, but how do I want to be? Instead of how I learned. And what I learned was a much more stereotypical relationship. I mean, luckily I grew up in a house that had a lot of love in it, but I don't remember a lot of open intimacy, I guess.
As in like public displays of affection with your
Not
parents?
necessarily public displays of affection, but like a real fucking conversation.
Okay. Like an honest one.
Yeah.
Okay. So everything was superficial in the home?
And maybe I just don't see it, right? I'm not my parents. I don't know where they had those conversations. I assume they did. They were married up until my father passed away in 2014. Married for 40 years, and I wouldn't say unhappily married for any of it. But it still built those roles and archetypes in my head. And so once I started this relationship, I was able to say, like, we don't have to play by any of those rules. Like, there really aren't any rules. It's really what you two decide. And as long as you're both deciding that and you're both consenting to it, go for it. But being able to communicate that takes some time to be able to step away from your own bullshit and step away from all these rules of what's supposed to be. And you said something that we're not taught that. We're not. We're not taught to take accountability. We're not taught to take the responsibility anymore. And that's on both sides. For me, it's radical accountability. And what that really means to me is that, like, it's all on me. If shit that's going bad in my life can all go back to some choice I made. Shit that's going great goes back to some choice I made. And I think a lot of people, whenever they take radical accountability or responsibility, they just take the burden of the hard stuff. But if I'm going to be the negative voice in my head that every high performer is going to have, man, you are going to be fucking mean to yourself, then I get all the fucking congrats too.
Right. That's actually something that's really lacked. A lot of people don't do that. You're right.
No, it's tough. We're not taught that. You know how fucking common it is that if we all wanted to go get together for a drink on a Friday or Saturday night and complain and piss and moan about life and anything else and the news, the media, whatever the distraction is, everyone's cool with that. Start talking about what you're doing well. Start talking about the dreams that you're going to have and watch how uncomfortable people get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about the changes you're going to make and all of a sudden you're better than us. But fuck that too.
We talk about that quite a bit. You don't have friends if they're not willing to celebrate your victories.
I want to be around people that are also have dreams they want to chase.
Yeah.
I want to be around people that are as excited about their life as I am mine. But that's got to be a boundary to hold.
Yeah. Well, I think that speaks to levels of success too, because people who are successfully driven people don't hang around with bums. Mm-hmm. Because they are crabs in a bucket and they will destroy your hopes and dreams and
absolutely
shit on every thought that you have. Anything? Okay. You mentioned the 22-year-old when you got married and you were a kid. I'm assuming that at that point in your life, the internet had not heavily influenced your life at that point. 22 years old.
Yeah, probably not nearly like it does today.
Right. So for people who are in their 20s right now that are trying to navigate relationships, who have fucked up home lives, don't have the intimate conversations with their parents, don't know how to properly love, don't know how to communicate because the parents just scream and yell at each other or have addiction or whatever the case may be. Now they have the internet influencing their decisions. And most of the time, the decision making that's given to them from the internet is based off of somebody trying to profit off of their suffering. Mm-hmm. Do you think that people in their 20s to 30s now are at a larger disadvantage to have a successful relationship than we were?
I don't know, right? I think all of that's still going to come down to user error of how you decide to process the information that's out there. Either you listen to stuff that aligns with you or you choose to pay more attention to things that validate your shortcomings.
Okay. It's
really on the user. I don't know that it has a good or bad intention behind it. I do think, of course, there's people out there trying to profit off of it, right? But that's never changed.
No, I mean, never will.
From whatever the influx that we've seen in this country of anxiety medications and therapy or any of these other things. I wouldn't say we're fucking happier because of those.
No, we're definitely not.
And so maybe that's worth listening to. Maybe there's a different way to go. Maybe find some people that are actually happy. I know for me, the big light bulb shift happened being around some other folks that just treated each other in a way that seemed so fucking foreign to me. And going like, holy shit, this is a way that you guys can communicate and handle each other? I didn't even think this was possible. I just thought it was fairy tale made up shit. I mean, a really specific example of that was prior to my divorce. Things were rocky and in a bad stage. Not knowing what to do and having a lot of that fear based on fallacy of sunk cost, right? Like that, well, I've spent 13 years in this. What am I going to do now? Move back to being a single guy, a fucking loser, at whatever age it is, and have to restart? Or do I just continue holding this line so the outside appearance continues to be what I hope it looks like? I don't give a fuck about their opinion anyway. I want to be happy. And so that took a lot of exploration to go find those types of people, go try new things. And that specific incident was I was staying with a friend of mine and I was out in LA doing some work, and I ran into a friend of mine who happened to be in town. And at the time, they were living a very alternative lifestyle to anything I'd experienced with open relationships and everything else. And hanging out with them, my buddy and one of his female friends, longtime friend, has been around, was with us, and his fiance was back home, and they're staying in this lovely Airbnb in California together. And so I'm just paying attention, right? Like without judgment or any of this of it. I can see how this would be a fucking problem in my life,
okay.
Right? That there would be resistance and friction from whatever this was. Simply because she's female, I'm male, we're staying together, this would be inappropriate. And over the course of this conversation, like it got messier the more I realized kind of what it was. And it was that he and her had previously been engaged and had maintained this friendship. And now she's best friends with his current fiance. And they all hang out. And there was this genuine sense of love and care for each other, despite that they weren't in that connected of a relationship. And that blew me away. Like up until that point, I've kind of always felt like, well, so it's either we spend the rest of our lives together or we never fucking talk again, right? Like that's the crossroads we're at. Why not? Why can't we be friends? Why can't we still be a resource? Why can't we still love and respect each other? Why can't I still want the best for your life, even if that's not me?
Right.
And that was a really eye-opening thing. And the more I was around it, it wasn't bullshit. And I was like, okay, there's something to learn here.
Do you have you ever had any mentors in your life?
A lot.
Yeah. So we have a lot of people who reach out and ask, because this entire thing is email based, right? Our whole podcast is people write in and ask us questions, and sometimes we get business questions, sometimes we get parent questions, kid questions. It is mainly relationship, but everything comes down to communication. But we do view ourselves as mentors of sorts, but we do get actual emails from people looking for mentorship, looking for the men's group that we have, or looking for people to answer just basic life questions because they didn't have a role model in their life. I have had mentors that have come into my life when I needed them and have stepped away when I no longer needed them.
Sure.
Right. But it's, I whether you believe in God or the universe, however you want to word that, that's being put in my place because in this moment I need that information, and that's why they're here. In terms of you having mentors in life, is that something that you've seeked out, or is that something that's just shown up the way that it's shown up for me? How has that looked for you? Because you are returning that by coaching people.
I would say it's a combination of.
Okay.
I would say there's a lot that I sought out. And then there's also people like my brother who, I got lucky enough to be dropped into a life that he was my brother. Both my parents are great mentors. I had great coaches through athletics growing up that gave a shit. Things that I didn't quite realize until later on how impactful they were. And being able to reach back out as an adult to someone that coached me when I was 15 and tell them how fucking much it mattered. But the ones I've sought out as well, like, man, they're not obligated to find you.
Right.
It's your obligation. If that's something that's important to you, you should go fucking find it and get around those people. I know that sounds really easy, right? But
it's not.
It's not.
At all.
It's not at all. And that involved, one of my biggest mentors is a guy, Kelly Starrett. Kelly wrote a book, Becoming a Supple Leopard, and
I know that
done a lot of great stuff. And we hit it off the first time I flew out to California to film an interview with he and his wife about what they were doing with stand-up desk in their kids' school to help with obesity and ADHD and everything else.
I have a lot of his mobility tools on my shelf in my living room.
Kelly's great.
Yeah.
An incredible guy, and has become a brother and a best friend over the years. And part of that was I knew how I felt being around them for a couple days. And so I made it a point that I went to go be around them for a couple days every quarter. If I was invited out to go spend time with people, I went. And so I don't think it's not crazy hard to meet a lot of these people. It's tougher to become someone they want to spend a second time with.
That makes sense.
And so part of that is, being valuable. How do I help?
Right.
How do I contribute instead of just showing up with my hands fucking empty, wanting to steal their energy and steal from them? But how do I make their life better? How do I contribute? How do I help? How do I use the resources I have to help them do the things they want to do?
Have you ever reached out to somebody looking for mentorship and tried to offer them money for it?
I haven't.
Okay. I get that. Has it happened to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it a lot. And it's one of those things that, like, when you get to a point in your life where you're financially stable, the money doesn't mean as much as the relationships do. And, like, I don't want to mentor people for revenue. It'd be nice to make a lot more money in life, but I want to do it on something that fulfills me. And if I can help someone, I'm just going to help them. But I need to see your value. Mm-hmm. I need to see that you're actually going to do something with my time, because I can't get my time back. I can always make more money. So for young men who are trying to find mentorship, how do you recommend they go about doing that? Just showing up at places and trying to connect with people? Because it's not easy for anyone.
So, there's so many options now, right? Like, whether that's events that people speak at, or there are mastermind groups that host retreats. There are any of these things you can go to and be part of and meet new people that are into the same stuff that you're looking to become more into.
Okay.
So go. As far as, charging people for that, what I've noticed is the people that pay are more committed to making a change.
Well, that's because they're financially invested in it.
Right.
And
it's got to hurt.
I absolutely, right. And where's that balance? Because there are young men out there who are suffering right now that don't have the money, that can't do it. And those are the ones that I am more drawn to, because I've been homeless and I've been that guy that has come from absolutely nothing. And without the mentors in my life telling me, hey, you're about to really make a big mistake, I wouldn't be here. Right? I would have never had any of the levels of success that I had, because some of those mentors were, I really fucked up by doing X, Y, Z. So in your steps, don't do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that if I would have had that proper guidance in a lot of other facets in my life, I'd be so much further than I am right now. But you're right in that the financial aspect of it, if they've got the money to spend on it, though, at what point does it still become a waste? Because you see people throw away money on shit all the time. If they've got it, it's not really a hurtful thing.
Sure. In my experience, I've dealt with very few people who are willing to spend that amount of money and just toss it out the window. It happens. It's incredible to me that it still happens. But a lot of those people aren't even willing to show up for them. And that's got to be a step one. And that one doesn't take financial investment.
Right.
That takes building the habits. That takes having the self-awareness. That takes being able to be consistent every day with your effort and where you spend your energy, or what you allow to be the distraction of what changes you want to make. There's a lot of stuff that can get done pretty free through podcast information, through awareness, through journaling, through any of this that doesn't require a financial investment. Athletics, sports, training. One of the things I love most about the physical side of stuff kind of being the avenue for personal development to start is anyone I've ever met who's strong we got something.
Right.
You can't fake it. You didn't buy it. You didn't hire a guy to become strong. You fucking showed up every day and did a thing no one else gives a shit about for a really long time.
And you did it for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And whether you did it out of changing an insecurity or any number of other reasons that may have been the, base level reason you started, what you learned is that you can change. And you learned that me showing up every day and putting my effort toward this creates change in me. And it's a little bit trickier when it comes down to more of the emotional stuff, the more ethereal stuff. But it's the same recipe. It's being willing to show up and be consistent. And like, if you can't do that, then there's got to be some willingness in yourself to say, I want to go this way. I'm fucking going this way. And if that means everything else around me has to go with it, then so be it. I mean, I love that quote that the life you want is going to cost you the one you have.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's true.
It is.
The mindset, the mentality, the comforts, the habits, the distractions, the anything.
The routine.
Yeah. I think we got there, if we look back generationally, right? My parents, who I guess my dad would have been like in his mid 70s, my mom's 70, and then their parents, right? The World War II generation had scarcity, had real shit to deal with.
Right.
And so the idea of being comfortable was such a fucking unfathomable luxury that's what they wanted for their kids. And of course they do. Why wouldn't you want better for the next generation?
Right.
Our parents' generation got taught fucking lock into a job, stay there 35 years, do the thing, grind it out, and then one day you get this comfort, man. You'll get to relax. You get to do all this. My generation, it's changed. We have this abundance, I've been fortunate enough to only have been hungry in my life due to choice, right? Because I needed to lose weight. Or the fact that I still had running water in my house, or any of these number of comforts, right? That when they're always around, you don't recognize them. And so we're so trained to see discomfort, and we're so trained to see problems, because I imagine for about 170,000 years that Homo sapiens has been around, that's been pretty fucking important. Those are the things that kill you, not the stuff that keeps you comfortable. But now that luxury has shifted down so much, and that we have such an abundance of luxury, I mean, a perfect example of that is, for a few years I had a rental property in like Section 8 housing, and there wasn't a single one of those houses that didn't have a fucking flat screen TV in it. Yeah. Where you choose to spend it, have the luxury you have, and always still being able to look at what you're lacking. Instead of being able to recognize how lucky you are to have these things and what an honor it is to push yourself to become your best. But adaptation happens in whichever side of discomfort it is. If that discomfort is you sitting on the fucking couch all day, your body will happily adapt to be very good at it.
Right.
But it's going to be really bad at doing the other things. But we ignore these warning signs along the way of these little whispers that start popping up of how I feel, how do I talk to myself, where's my motivation, am I depressed, am I getting anxious, am I doing any of these? And instead of looking at those as this illuminating guidepost of we should probably take a fucking action, we decide to figure out how to distract ourselves from the symptom instead of curing the problem. But things are going great. I should be able to sit in my couch and fucking retire at 20. Fuck that, dude.
Yeah.
Our lives are supposed to constantly adapt. We're supposed to adapt as people. I don't want to be the guy I was at 22. I don't want to be the guy I was at 32. And now at 40, I imagine at 50, I'll probably feel this guy's a bit of a dick.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
I hope so.
That's my existence.
Yeah.
I used to tell people all the time, my 30s to my 40s were my best decade. Because I experienced a really shitty childhood and teenage years, and my 20s were a fucking disaster. So 30 to 40 was my come up. I'm 43 now, and my life looks very different than it did at 33. And where I'm going to be at 50, I'm not going to look back and be like, hey, I love that guy. And be like, I had so much fucking growth that needed to happen, and it happened over the next 7 years. I can't wait to see what I look like at 60.
Right.
So, and that's not being stagnant and not accepting less than for yourself, right? Because you know that as you evolve and grow, you have more life to live. You're going to get to go and see maybe 1% of Earth on your map.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Like if you're lucky, that'll be the case. So I want to get into relationship a little bit more with you, but with the conversation that you said about, I just fucking lost it. I've been holding on to it this whole time going, okay, don't forget. It'll
come back through.
It probably will. So we'll just move on. Can we talk about the TikTok that you made last night about relationships?
Yeah. That one you're talking about, specifically, I believe, what are we talking about in it? That the amount of self-love that you have for yourself is a reflection of how much you can receive from other people.
Yep.
So that's one of those that I've found really to be the root cause of a lot of what I work with clients on and what we host retreats around is how many people feel unworthy or incapable of receiving love due to, well, they don't particularly like them. And so whenever you do encounter someone that loves you and is nice to you and all those things and you think you're a piece of shit, what makes them a liar?
Ooh, that's a hell of a statement. That's a clip.
And so it's really fucking tough to overcome.
Right.
But all of that has to stem from the habits and actions, not what you fucking say. It's not the affirmations in the mirror. It's the actions and habits that tell the world who you are, what you care about. You know, and being able to care about yourself in a way that is, I'm physically going to take care of myself so that I feel better. I am going to be in better shape so that my brain functions better. I'm going to build a bigger gas tank through cardio and anything else so that I can work harder and focus more on the things that I love. And having self-love look like that. You know, I think we really get messed up and we start looking at self-love as this woo-woo term of complacency. Of like, oh, it's self-love and acceptance. Like, fuck that. Self-love is holding myself to the fire and not judging who I've been for my mistakes, but just realizing I didn't know. I'm done judging whatever yesterday's decision was with today's information. It's just data to help me make the next, make the next decision forward. And so being able to look at the things of like, well, if I did love myself, what would be the habits that I had? Well, I'd probably talk nicer to myself. That's a big one, is dealing with that negative voice in the head. And how do you reframe it? How do you shift it? How do you get into abundance? I use a technique that I kind of call catching it. So as soon as I find myself spiraled up and have the awareness of noticing that like, oh, I'm doing that thing, I'm just being shitty to myself to be shitty to myself. I've also realized that voice ain't me.
Yeah.
That voice is some fucking combination of my dad and coaches and other people. I got really lucky that I did well under that voice, like my coaches and everything else, right? So I can respond okay to that. Not everyone can. But you can still rewire it and realize that's not me. And as soon as that voice starts, take a minute and say, we don't have to do that anymore. Thank you for noticing we can pick a new way to talk to ourselves. Thank you for being able to change our habits. Thank you for having the consistency to become who we want to be. Thank you for the abundance that I already have. Thank you for this additional awareness. Thank you for all those years that got me here, but they're not what's going to get me to where I want to go.
So let me ask you this then: when because your entire foundation sounds like it's been based from fitness, like the lessons that you learn in the gym transpires across everything in life. And I agree with that because I've owned a gym and I'm a little chunky right now because I tore my pec, but whatever.
Comes in cycles, man.
It does, and dealing with a muscle tear sucks. But I was always that guy that would negative self my talk for a PR. Throw on some Pantera, and every negative, nasty thing that you can think of, I'm saying it to get myself amped up to move that weight. But what I didn't realize is doing that at 9 o'clock in the morning would fuck up my entire day.
Yeah.
Though I feel good and I'm strong. I know I'm strong, but all day now I'm dealing with my demons because I put myself in that headspace. she caught me doing that shit in the gym one morning and pulled me aside and she's like, don't do that anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you don't realize what you're doing to yourself when you're doing that. And we had a big talk, and now
I love that.
She's my no negative self-talk, right? As soon as it comes out, she stops that shit. But my perspective has changed. And now when I'm in the gym and I'm having a bad day and she looks at me and she's like, what are you doing? Like, come on, let's go. There's a different accountability there, but I don't leave the gym feeling like shit anymore. I leave feeling like I accomplished something and the rest of my day is conquerable now. Whereas before I felt like I could destroy anything, but there was no victories involved because I still felt like shit. That self-talk and the voice that's in your head that you let win dictates everything in your life, and you are in control of it if you're aware that it's happening. I got lucky in that she became that awareness for me, because at the time I didn't realize that was what was going on. The no negative self-talk and the way that we changed the way that we talk to ourselves while lifting, I felt better.
Yeah.
And knowing that I felt better afterwards, I was able to reflect and be like, the last 20 years of lifting has not been right for my mental health. It's been great for my body, but it's been putting me in a perpetual cycle of hate and anger and violence, because that's where I needed to be in the moment.
Couple things on that I'd love to speak on. One, awesome. Great fucking work. And a challenge for you, which has been one for me, is I want to see myself the way my wife sees me. And like being able to really live in that. And that's a challenge. I'm not always the nicest to myself. And I think a lot of that self-talk that comes with the gym or any of that for so many years is this building armor or whatever it is, right? To protect this wounded portion of yourself from being a kid or trying to prove someone else wrong, which I believe is a scarcity idea anyway, instead of proving me right. Proving this version of me that wants to show up as my best, right? To see what I'm fucking capable of. Not measuring it against anyone else's shit. Because no one cares.
Right.
No one really fucking cares. No one cared that I was out throwing in a field by myself. That didn't pay off until after I'd retired from injury. And I was able to actually apply all those rules to everything else. The other side that came with the, was recognizing whenever I was competing in that, what were some of the like mechanical things that I was getting from it, right? Well, I had solitude, time to think while I trained. There was a lot less internet, so I wasn't between sets on my phone.
Right.
I was just between sets, sitting. And when I was out throwing in a field, I was listening to music, and I was in the sun for 90 minutes, doing something I'm good at, being in flow state. I'm like, oh, maybe that's more important than the actual being good at the thing. And so why don't we try and see how that habit adds back in? I would love to know what got you.
She's a crier.
I'm good.
I am a crier, yeah.
Same.
Because I would love for my husband to see himself the way I see him.
Yeah, my wife would love for me to see myself that way too. I'm working on it.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because I've got 40 years of knowing what a fucking moron I am.
Right. Well, and then you see, but you had, and this is not saying that it's different for me or it's worse for me, but you had coaches and you had a father who is a great mentor. I have all of my self-loathing on top of, you're fucking stupid. You know what I mean? Like you're a fat piece of shit. You're never going to be anything, because that was my existence. There was a lot of abuse there. And instead of working through that abuse, I use that as fuel for everything that I've ever accomplished. But now that I have a little bit of success and I'm living a healthy, therapeutic, like I've done a lot of fucking shadow work on myself, that is not the way you want to live. And it took a lot to get past that. So like I am still dealing with that. So she sees it.
Yeah.
But and that's why she was able to call me on it. We were able to grow past that. So it's not just my shit. It's everyone else's compounded on top of it, because I believed it. And that chip on my shoulder of, I'm going to prove you wrong. They don't give a fuck that you prove them wrong.
They don't give a shit.
That hate and that anger and all of that bullshit that was thrown at you because of their bullshit. So,
and just what they learned and what they were exposed to, right? Like Man, I love my dad, and my dad was great, but also my dad was a Boilermaker from small town Louisiana, lived and died there his entire life, and I mean, traveled, did some things, right? But we all know that the people you surround yourself with are going to have a giant impact on who you are.
Absolutely.
My dad's 6 closest friends are 6 other guys who fucking have an damn near identical life to him.
Right.
Mine isn't. My 6 people are fucking wizards. They're people that I can't even imagine, living a life like they have. They're people that do some things that are so far and away what I want to be, and they're always someone to look up to. And that's been in relationships. It's not just been business growth or any of this, but it's communication tactics. It's awareness. It's their ability to stay focused on their relationship, their ability to kind of balance between... I'm really over masculine and feminine being discussionary terms, because I think we could use a couple less fucking lines drawn in the sand about what divides us. And I look at both aspects of who I am as the monk and motherfucker.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And so I want access to the monk who keeps my head on straight. I want access to the one that realizes that thing that I'm feeling from someone ain't got shit to do with me. But I also need the motherfucker that can show up.
Sounds familiar, don't it?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's on my team too.
Right.
That's been interesting to get him on the team.
Yeah.
That we show up when it counts and we can do the work, but it's not done out of this, move you fat fuck, let's get better at this. Why are you so fucking stupid? I catch those now. And I immediately switch to the other. Immediately start switching to the other of that abundance of thank you for catching it. Thank you for knowing we don't have to talk to ourselves that way. Not only that, I start saying that shit out loud.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because here's what I
know you do.
Yeah.
Here's what I believe in it, right? I think our thoughts operate at a certain frequency. I mean, we can measure those on brain scans or anything else. I also know that when I speak, the sound that comes out of my mouth is at a frequency.
It also makes things happen.
Of course it does, right? That's what reverberates back to you. Instead of this one just stays locked in.
Yeah.
And so when I say it out loud, now we're talking about it. I've applied energy to my thought, to the positive thought that I want out there. And so when I take that thought and I decide to apply energy to it in the form of calories by expanding my lungs and moving my diaphragm and pushing air over my vocal cords in a tone that I give a shit about, in a way that I want to say, right? I'm not just like, you're doing great. I'm not the voice modulated Pete Sampras. But I get a chance to say it how I want to myself. And so it's intentional. And so now I'm adding all that to this frequency that goes out. And I believe that is much stronger than whatever is happening inside of me. And even though I know no matter what, I'm going to take these 20 shots at myself during the day. Oh, you fucking idiot. You blew it. Whatever it is. What the little thing is that I catastrophize and make to be the worst or whatever. I can choose to overpower it by the amount of positive that I say out loud. And that makes the ratio better. I don't know how to get rid of it. I also don't want to get rid of all of it.
You want to be able to call on it when you need it.
Right.
I get that. I say that shit to her all the time. I know who I am and what I'm capable of, but I don't want to ever be that. But I need to know that if I can be that motherfucker, I can call on it and it's there. So I get that. And we've said that a lot on the podcast. It's okay to be that motherfucker in a time of need, but my kids don't ever need to see that side of me. It's there when I need it.
Well, they need to see that side of you that shows up every day with discipline and goes and do the things that you don't want to fucking do.
Right. But I can do that without being that motherfucker.
Right. I'm not saying motherfucker has to be rude.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take that.
Motherfucker doesn't have to be aggressive.
Mine is.
Yeah. Big chunks of mine are too, but I can dismantle the pieces I don't want.
Yeah.
That motherfucker can be wildly proud of me. But the way that we show it is by showing up and doing the things that I don't want to fucking do every day. I don't want to get in the cold plunge every morning.
Do you actually do that?
Yeah, twice a day.
We bought a hot tub
That's great too. I like
can't-
both.
I can't, well, and I have a sauna on my porch. It's like a small box sauna.
Mm-hmm.
It's like $200, and it came with a cold plunge tub. And I looked at it and just threw it in the bathroom. It's in a bathroom closet. The idea of getting in cold just does not do it for me at all. And I've looked and I've researched and I know how beneficial it is to do that. But like,
So fuck all the scientific benefit stuff like that, right? Because like I'm not that smart. I threw fucking rocks in a field. That's all stuff that I'm going to get from using it, whether I care or not.
Right.
It's just from getting in it. So a couple things that have landed me on why I use it. And I got into the cold stuff around like 2015 because my knee was shitty. So I needed something to mitigate pain, and it helped.
really?
And then I've kept it part of my routine for all the other benefits, which is clarity and focus. It also is this moment every single day that I get to microdose that feeling of I don't want to fucking do this, but I'm getting in. We don't have to have this debate internally.
Right.
We're getting in the fucking tub.
I need something like that. We should do ice plunges.
I mean, you're more than welcome to do that. I like cold to about 40 degrees.
I don't see any reason why you should go lower than that.
Anything, I'm just,
I keep my cold. I keep my cold plunge at like 41 to 45.
yeah. So it's not actual ice then, it's just cold water.
Yeah, well, I mean, it circulates and stays chilled, right?
Yeah.
There isn't any science that benefits like it becomes such a dick measuring contest for dudes. They're like, I was in there for this long and at this temperature. Look, water fucking turns into a solid at a certain temperature. Like
Right.
it's as cold as it gets. It doesn't fucking make any difference. And if you're not using it for the down regulation side of things, then you're fucking missing the point. You're not supposed to sit in there and just fucking lock up and resist it. It's about being okay. It's understanding this wide gap between whatever fucking discomfort is and what danger is, because they're not the same. And back to what we talked about with just life being comfortable, right? I think that we've done a really poor job of understanding the difference between those two. That deciding that I want discomfort, I'm not that interested in danger.
Yeah. Doing stupid things safely.
But whenever you don't experience discomfort, it all reads the same. The same anxiety pops up. Now that we've, used cold as long as we have and we use it as a big part of our retreats, man, you see people. You see people lock up like they're fucking worried about dying. Like no one's died here. No one's ever died from sitting in fucking okay temperatured water for a few minutes.
How long do you stay in?
3 minutes.
You
We
really
could do that.
You really want one of these things, huh?
Yeah. I've thought about it. I've been doing, the last month has been a lot of research into, I've been watching documentaries on Netflix like being 100 years old and people eating purple sweet potatoes and all those kinds of things. And I've really been deep diving the benefits of
So you're talking about like
ice
the blue
plunge.
zone stuff and all
yeah,
that?
the blue zone
The diet,
and whatnot.
I think for sure fucking matters, right?
Yeah.
Like it'd be crazy to think that this entire machine, my brain functions, my hormones, my immune system and everything functions off of fuel. Mm-hmm. And that the fuel I put in my mouth doesn't have anything to do with it is fucking crazy. Of course it does. But also any of those blue zones, what do you really see, right? Like tons of outdoor time. Mm-hmm. People are physically active.
Yep. Really no
People
screen
have
time.
community.
Yeah.
That's the big one.
Community is so huge.
And that's something I noticed a lot recently, last year while we went over to work with Fight for the Forgotten in Uganda. We stayed with the Batwa there. They don't have anything. Like we're not talking about poverty. We're talking about making $200 a year. We're talking about most of the time the jobs are either prostitution or gather wood and trade either for alcohol. But as we've began to help and we've found this land and been giving some opportunity, man, what they're not short on is community and love. And on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's food, water, shelter, community, belonging, love, and then it's self-actualization. And we've wanted to skip straight to self-actualization. It doesn't fucking work without the other part.
Yeah. We've become a society that is more disconnected than ever in history.
Yeah.
And we're more connected through a device than ever in history. That community is a big deal. That's why we actually got a Discord thing going for our podcast, and we've created that. We're both Christians, and we don't go to church locally because we haven't found one that works for us, and we do a lot of our stuff online, but that community is something that I crave. Mm-hmm. And I would have it in the gym for a while, and then I would go to a new gym, and all those people would fall off. And like, so it's one of those things where we don't even go to the gym anymore. We've isolated pretty hard because of the podcast, but
it's hard to be human when you have a platform.
it is.
Yeah. Be one of the benefits of having the platform, though, right? And at least what I found with ours and kind of the space we opened up at my gym, Dope, and what we've got with Not Dead Yet Life and our community retreats and everything else was the opportunity now that I've built a platform to put my fucking hand up and be like, yo, we're over here. If this is the type of shit you're looking for, we're here. Come join us.
So is that a mainly online thing, or do you actually have like a physical community? Because you said you own a gym.
So it's a mix. It's kind of a fucking gym.
Okay.
It's basically my studio. So my podcast studio's there, my office is there that I work at, and then I built it out as a gym because I want a place to train. And I'm aware enough at this point of me that I won't go to a commercial gym.
Same.
I just won't. I don't enjoy the atmosphere. I don't like the vibe. So fuck it. I'll invest in having my own. I didn't just train in my garage out of convenience. Apparently I trained that way because I fucking liked it.
Yeah.
I like the solitude. I need it. And while not an introvert by any fucking stretch, I still need it. And so we've opened the doors, which wasn't ever the intention of actually building the place out. But we opened the doors to our community in St. Louis. Sundays 10 to 2, we're open. It's free. It's an opportunity to come in and train, be around other people that give a shit, use the sauna, use the cold plunge, have some conversation. And then we use it now to host retreats, and my wife does breathwork and any number of things that we're into. I mean, the reason it's named Dope, and that stands for Division of Performance Enhancement. So anything that gets us better, that's what I want to use it for.
Is your wife competing still?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, she retired a couple years ago from powerlifting and has really shifted a lot more into this kind of side of things, of wellness, and really enjoying facilitating breath work and change. And she's got an incredible ability to hold space and share her energy.
Sounds like you.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I've also been doing research on like breath work and mindfulness and yoga and just how everything is interconnected with the body.
Yeah, of course it would be.
Does she have any like online courses that she does for
I don't think she does. I know that she took a few. Have you ever done a breathwork session or?
Not paid for ones. I've done like YouTube research and whatnot and 5-minute exercises, but nothing really super in depth.
Oh man, I would love to have you guys out to our retreat in Idaho in September.
That'd be dope.
We'll talk more about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
She hosts a breath work at the end of it, and it's this holotropic breathing, and holy shit, the room just fucking splits apart and goes nuts, and you end up with 40 people screaming and crying and into the whole thing, and giving people that space to actually feel.
I know people who were really big into psychedelics for a long time that stopped doing it and got into breath work, and they say that they're able to pull that same feeling from breath work as they were able to pull from psychedelics.
Yeah, I would say breathwork sessions are for sure a psychedelic modality.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, I don't know how psychedelics are technically defined, but my own personal definition of them is anything that alters my consciousness in a way that I can kind of view the world in a different perspective. And so with the breath work, one of the beauties of the meditation of it, right, is our breathing for so long is based on, well, it's automatic. You know, it's adjusted by whatever the activity is I'm choosing to do. What about if I just decided to max effort breathe? Seems like maybe something I should work on getting better at. Understanding that that's kind of transmission to the vehicle. How do I use breath work to downregulate? How can I use it to upregulate? How can I use it to access different stuff? Inhales are more of a upregulating type thing. So like the holotropic breathing is a belly breath, a chest breath, and an exhale. So it's like,
right.
And it's that for about 45 minutes. And then down regulating stuff, like for me, if I'm really spun up and not sure how to kind of slow things down, well, one, the cold will do it. We'll fucking win. The other is, I mean, especially coupling that and stacking that habit with the breath of my down regulating breath that I use is a big nasal inhale, full, and then a I drag the exhale out with a vibration as long as I can.
Elaborate on the vibration with that.
Sure. So I think the ratio of inhale to exhale makes a big difference. If inhale is upregulating like a gasp, then a sigh is downregulating and the defenses lose and we start relaxing into self. So if I can drag out the exhale for 10 times as long as the inhale, that's where we start shifting over central nervous system too.
Okay.
So we're never panicky and sighing. So we can decide to start sighing and remove panic.
Do you think, I'm going to interrupt. We had a call the other night with a couple from our Patreon group, and they were describing a scenario where they were having a phone call, and before the phone call even started, he sighed after his wife spoke. And it's a subconscious just mentally preparing for the conversation that's about to happen. So with you saying that the vibration with the exhale helps get into a state of out of the panic, do you think there are short bursts that people do, like that exhale of preparing for that tense conversation that they don't even recognize as short breath work?
Yeah, I think, like I said at the very beginning, right, that like our breath is dictated by the actions we're taking and the mood we're in. And a lot of people just spend all their entire lives living in their upper chest respiratory breathing, which is fight or flight. And so they don't ever kick into parasympathetic nervous system. And so that vibration piece stimulates the vagus nerve, which then starts downregulating us anyway.
Okay.
Your breathing technique things have become automated for you?
No.
They have, because I've been watching you do it the entire podcast. Yeah, like you do deep nasal breaths quite a bit. And like you can do it, and so does she, and that's something that we're working on. So when I...
Same. My first podcast was called So.
Yeah.
So...
That's funny.
Yeah.
So I look for people's way to regulate that because I want to stop doing it. So I pay attention to the way people talk when they speak well, and that was one of your things, was that you nasal breathe instead of saying And I wasn't going to say anything about it. I was going to talk to her about it afterwards. So it was maybe
well, that's great. I appreciate it.
But I was able to see you doing that real time. And now that the breathing thing has come up for you guys who have been watching, if you go back to the beginning and watch, he's done it the entire podcast.
I mean, but that also helped competing, right?
Yeah.
It's being able to slow it down, being able to kind of take myself out of this finite moment that I've built a lot of energy around of, this is going to be a fucking thing. It's going to pass.
Yeah.
You know, in the billions of years the planet's been here, most likely this afternoon's not going to make the list of really important shit. So maybe just do my best.
Yeah.
You made a comment earlier about the flow state. Can you explain that or talk about that?
I know smarter people than me have done a better job of explaining it. Stephen Coulter does a really good job. He's got book, I think one's Becoming Superman, and then the other one is The Art of Impossible that I really liked. So in flow state, for those not familiar with it.
Can you say the second book again?
The Art of Impossible.
Impossible.
Yeah. And I think Becoming Superman has a lot to do with Nietzsche and the Ubermensch and all that type of stuff. But flow state is in that really hyper-present place. And it kind of typically shows up at the edge of your capability when everything is focused and everything is paying attention. You know, I notice it mountain biking or lifting or throwing, that things are allowed to slow down a little bit more. My perception of time gets a little bit better. And the body, mind, and machine are all working in unison. Like, I'm not necessarily having to tell myself, pedal. It's working. You know, I can focus on this next thing coming up because I understand my balance, my not hitting this tree, whatever else are already taking care of themselves. I think it got popularized from surfing, flow state, and being able to kind of be involved with the environment you're in and be hyper present.
Okay. So a hyper presence. I'm gonna have to read those books. What are you currently reading?
I'm slowly going through and enjoying very much Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. Really, really like that. I am listening to quite a bit of Alan Watts.
Okay.
I really like Alan Watts.
Same.
I'm listening to Nietzsche on Buddhism, and Outwitting the Devil is another one.
Yeah, I just finished that like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
It's it's crazy to me that there are people out there who can read multiple books at one time and remember everything.
I don't.
Right. So I've tried, because I will sometimes try to read a physical book and then go to my Audible and because I audiobook everything.
Same.
And trying to go from a physical reading to an audio book, I can't retain anything from the reading aspect. I have to listen to it. That's how I retain information. It's how my body learns. But I've tried to do multiple books at one time, and it just becomes a jumbled mess, and I can't keep up with shit. So for you to be like, oh, I'm currently reading da-da-da-da-da-da.
So I typically journal a lot too, from whatever it is I'm listening to. I realize that there's like two types of reading, I guess I would call it. There's one where I'm interested in information, and I don't care how I get it, whether that's a YouTube video, a podcast, an audiobook, who cares? As long as I'm getting it, great. The other reading, which is something for a very, very long time I'm bad at because I don't do one thing well. I do multitask. I am ADHD. I have all these other things, and one of those things I've come to this point in my life to realize is, well, I've also never really practiced to get better at them. So why don't we practice? And reading out of a book and being still and doing one thing is one of those ways that I get to practice it. Because every time I start, it's still the same thing. Why am I fucking doing this? I could be doing these 12 other things. This is such a waste of my time. Blah, 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 blah. And it fades. 10 or so minutes in, I find myself locked in. As long as I'm reading something I'm interested in.
Right.
If I'm not interested in it, go fucking put the book away. Go find something else.
Yeah, Jordan B. Peterson said that we can only digest 15 minutes of reading at a time. So you're supposed to read for 15 minutes, pause and reflect on what you've read, and then continue reading.
Well, what a beautiful way he's using that. Alan Watts has a bit more ethereal approach, and one of those I really liked is the once you get the message, hang up the fucking phone.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see scientists or anyone else stuck with their entire career with their eye glued to the telescope or microscope. They have to witness a thing and then put it into play. So if you're reading all this information and reading books for the sake of becoming a book reader and like getting the fucking merit badge to put on your wall that you read X, but you're not integrating any of the information into your life, then what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
And I feel that.
Yeah.
And I feel that around psychedelic experience, around therapy, around anything. If you're not integrating the information, you're just jerking off. Why?
Yeah. Just give yourself a pat on the back. What was it that said in Fight Club? Self-improvement is mental masturbation or some shit?
Sure.
Yeah, same thing. Do you have anything you want to ask him? You want to wrap up?
No, I don't have anything I want to ask.
Okay.
I did realize something though while you guys were talking.
What's that?
So you both do coaching, and I've thought about doing like one-on-one women's coaching, and I don't think I could do it.
Why?
Why? Oh, yeah. I'm immediately in.
Because I think that there is a big difference between men wanting to change and women wanting to change.
I coach both men and women.
So I attract women because they want to be my friend. They think that I'm goofy and cool and I'm fun. And once I actually check them and say, look, what you're doing is problematic for your relationship, I'm a problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but that's not a you problem. That's
Right.
That is a client problem.
I don't think that I would get the kind of clientele, though, that would really stick to the work and not take it personally.
I think you're lying to yourself.
I actually think so.
Yeah.
Too. I do.
I think from the last few experiences, I disagree with that.
You would have to weed those people out. You're always going to have flaky individuals who are just trying to buy an in.
Yeah.
But you are going to have those people like I have, like with Dakota and Steven. Mm-hmm. You just have to find them. Not everybody's meant to be a client. It's okay to fire people.
I mean, what's the size of your audience?
Of our audience?
Yeah.
What, 2.4 million?
I think, 2.4 across platforms, and we average 300 to 400,000 downloads a month on it.
Fucking incredible, man. One, congrats.
Thank you.
It's fucking hard work. The other side of that is, for you, out of that many people, there's 50 of them that are exactly who you'd want to work with. Talk to them.
Okay.
Don't talk to the people with their hands down. Fuck them.
That's something I'm going to have to work on. I want to help everybody.
Yep.
And turning somebody away because they're the problem. And I'm going to have to say that, like, look, the way that you are not ingesting things, people have a shield up. They don't want to take in information if it hurts their feelings. And I think pointing that out to people is going to be hard for me.
Yeah.
Well, a big chunk of that hurting their feelings, right, is still based on ego. I mean, look, my day one conversation with any client I have is, have we read the 4 Agreements?
I love that book.
It's great.
It is.
I mean, with my group, this is something we've dove into it at least once a year, and last year spent a month on a chapter.
Wow.
I even got to the point where I just re-listened to that chapter on repeat, like while I was in the sauna, because it's like 20-minute chapters. It's not a long book.
Yeah, they're short.
That book is packed with information. And I want to digest as much of it as I can and really find the depths of don't take things personal and be impeccable with my word and always doing my best and not making assumptions. And not only just being impeccable with my word with like, I said I'd be here at 10, I'll be here at 10. But I'm impeccable with my word as I talk to me the way I want to be talked to. Mm-hmm. I talk to other people the way I want the universe to talk to me. I'm impeccable with it, right? Like, so if I want to reach the right client, I need to be able to communicate and form the bridge so that they find me. And helping clients do that and not take things personal, right? Be like, look, man, this everything you're feeling about this being personal, this isn't an attack on you. This is an attack on this life that you've built that is through this filter of all the bullshit and information and experiences you've had that you have categorized as X. Mm-hmm. And you now think that they are you, that you're this way. You're not.
That's a good way to put that.
You learned it. We can fucking learn something else.
Mm-hmm. Why are you looking at me?
I'm processing everything that you two just said. There's a lot.
Okay.
I do think that you would do very well coaching people because you have discernment in a way that a lot of people do not.
I want to coach people. I do. There's a concern in me that the overwhelming amount of women who want my help are going to be seeking friendship versus actual self-improvement.
Right. Well, that's where the money comes in.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I said earlier, I understand that.
Also, they can be both.
Yeah.
The Venn diagram can overlap.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But they don't have to.
Right.
You know, I mean, look, I think people do need friends. And I also think it's really weird that we've gotten to this point. I mean, hell, man. A number of the guys that are even mentors of mine now, I approached and was very much like, you're 36, I'm 36. We seem to be into similar shit. Do you want to hang out?
You be my friend?
Yeah. And like me having the ego check to be able to just say that to another man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, I'd like to be friends. What I'm very lucky to also have is this decade I spent doing outside sales in the oil and gas industry. So I'm really good at maintaining relationships, even if they're one-sided. I no longer take it personally if it's one-sided.
Right.
People I want to be around are fucking busy. They're doing shit. So I check.
Yep.
I check in because I want to know.
We talk about that a lot. And we talk about it in relationships. People get so caught up in the matched energies that their intimacy fails because they're too pig-headed to maintain the intimacy on their own. I'd rather have some intimacy than no intimacy. And that's how I view my friendships. I will check in with people every week. If I don't hear from them in months, I'm still going to check in with you because I care.
Right.
That friendship is important to me. And if I feel like it's important to them, great. But if not, if they still hold a position in my life, I'm going to continue checking in.
Yep.
That goes a long way. But that falls into the need for community and the understanding that I have because I am busy. And there are times that my family will text me, my sister and my mom, and they won't hear from me for days. And they'll hear back and I'll have like a 5-hour phone call conversation if I can. But if I have the ability to have that talk, I will. Otherwise, you're going to be like a haha, LOL. Like you interacted with me on Messenger or on email. Sometimes my emails are short as fuck.
Yeah.
We're busy. It's not a personal thing. I need the quick interactions because I need the details.
And also, look, I think there's a real problem that we're going to have to sort out as the pendulum swings because of technology. And kind of where we started this conversation with how much information's out there, like this wasn't around our entire fucking lives. This is brand new. especially if we look at 100 years.
Right.
We are in the fucking Wild West still.
But there are people who this has been their entire life.
But they're not dead yet.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we haven't had a whole lifetime of a person who's dealt with this. It's not like seatbelts in a car.
Right.
Right? And so at some point, I think the pendulum will swing back and the younger generation will be able to filter it and find it less important than what our generation got locked into it with. So that being able to not only disseminate information, but figure out how to process it. And the further we go down that path, the more nonverbal communication we've become. And one of those things we learn in communication is 99% of it's done nonverbally anyway. This is why I can communicate around the world and still get by. I don't speak any other fucking languages. I barely speak this one. But I can tell by eye contact and tone of voice and body language and any number of things, right? Of like what your intention of communicating is. And all of that fucking disappears via text. Mm-hmm. And so not only does all of that disappear via text, I now read it in whatever state I'm in.
Correct. Yep.
And if you are constantly being attacked and you constantly live in fight or flight, then every fucking message is an attack.
Yep. That's why we tell people constantly not to have the important conversations over text message. That is one of the biggest messages from year one of our podcast. Stop having conversations over a text message and sit down and talk to your person.
I've switched a lot to, if I'm reaching out to people or communicating back and forth, I do a video message.
Yeah. Mike from Force of Focus does audio. He will send.
Yeah.
He sends me messages constantly that are audio.
Yeah, I just wanted to do video. I want you to be able to see me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Damn, so much. This is a good episode.
Yeah.
Man, for one, look, I thank you guys for bringing me. It's an honor. It's always an honor to get to share information and talk with other people who are interested in getting better. I think what you guys are doing is fucking great.
It's so crazy to me when people come here and say that shit.
Me too.
Because when I reached out to you, I didn't think I was going to get a response.
Why?
I don't know. Because
I don't have a giant following anywhere.
But there's a respect there.
Okay.
Okay. It would be like me trying to reach out to Kelly. Dude has a following.
Sure.
But he's been a presence in my life for 12 years now through the internet. So I have a parasocial relationship with him. He doesn't even know I exist.
Right.
I've bought his products. I've watched his videos. I've used it to rehab my shoulder. So he has been he's been very prudent. So for me to reach out to him, I'm not going to expect a contact back just because we have 2.5 million followers on the internet means nothing. They're internet people. They're just numbers. They're people who happen to hit a heart or a follow.
It's also not the same as saying it's nothing, right? It does mean that whatever energy you're putting into this resonates with people.
Yeah. Well, see, I see that through our Patreon because we have 1,300 people on our Patreon right now. Wow. And those are the people that are not a number. Those are the people that I recognize their names.
Those are the people with their hands
in
up.
Discord, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the ones that I value that more than any of the Instagram or TikTok nonsense, or even YouTube for that matter. It's super dope to have the following we have on YouTube, but I don't know these people the way that we have an intimate relationship with the Patreon. So when I reached out to you, I see your content. I respect a lot of the things that you say, and there are qualities in you that I want for me. So this is an opportunity for me to have conversation with you that I'm going to be able to pick apart and go, okay, this is where I can apply these things in my life. And hopefully you guys listening get the same thing from that. So when I emailed you, I didn't think I was going to get a response back. I figured, okay, this dude's a coach. He's busy as shit. He's not going to take a day or two out of his life to come down here and talk to me. And if he does, great. But if you don't ask, you don't know. So
what's the point of building a fucking life that you don't get to do what you want?
Right.
I want to connect. I want to have new relationships. That's what got me here.
Right.
I don't turn the gas on that and pretend that I'm at the fucking helm of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all being a leader really means you go first. It's not some hierarchy that I'm not looking for advice or anything else. I mean, man, I want to connect. That's one of the things I love most about the internet and building a following. I mean, that's why Kelly and I are friends. You know what I mean? That's what built the relationships I have with him or any of the other incredible group of humans that I've got to be associated with. They didn't show up in Sulphur, Louisiana, where I was born.
Right. You had to seek them out.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we are. And there are a lot of people that have been sent to us by other people, and that's the networking aspect, but it's different when you are interested in having a conversation versus somebody going, hey, these would be great for your podcast.
Sure.
So it is a different situation. And I value the conversations. We have our faith, and I think that our calling is to fix relationships and try to build a community and help people in that facet of our lives. And the interview aspect of all of this has been selfishness for me because I enjoy talking to people. I think that's how I'm going to grow, because I can listen to a book 1,000 times, but you're going to hear the same thing I did and take it differently. And if I can't have those conversations, I'm not going to really understand beyond my own understanding. And if that's all I have is my own understanding, I have that already.
Well, so that thing you're talking about, right? Like that's your perspective.
Right.
Right. Your perspective is built like this lens that every piece of information that you encounter throughout a day, conversation, audiobook, everything has to pass through your lens, which gives every piece of that perspective meaning, connecting back to something you've experienced, learned, or whatever.
Right. It's your cognitive bias.
So your perspective creates your fucking reality, period. So the better job I can do of managing my perspective and creating my perspective the way I want, my reality will follow. And so being able to have those conversations. Now, with that said, I tell plenty of people I don't want to be on their podcast. It really depends on like what subject matter is and what they're talking about. You guys are interested in helping others. You're interested in spilling your guts maybe to give people permission to spill theirs, to be normalized in it, to not think everything's fucking flowers and sausages all the time, right? And for me, like, man, what an honor. Other people doing the work, yeah, man, I'd love to be part of it. I mean, you can build a giant audience being controversial too, and you can build a giant audience selling fear.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be any less into it.
There's a lot of that.
Well, it works.
It does. Well, I mean, it does. It absolutely does. That's why the news is still a thing.
And with that said, as far as radical accountability goes, that's our fault. We chose that.
Yeah.
Because if it's on TV and they have ads, their job is to get your attention.
To sell ads.
Period. Well, we've told them that if we watch long enough, we'll buy the things they show us.
Right.
And what makes us watch more tends to be things we're fucking angry at. There was some years ago a statistic about Howard Stern, right? That was people that love his show listened on average for 30 minutes a day, and people that hated his show listened on average for 50 minutes a day.
That's insane when you think about it.
Right.
But it's true, though, because your haters are your biggest fans.
Well, I mean, fuck all that.
It's true,
They're
though.
Biggest fans.
I
mean, if we're describing fan that way, but I don't think they're getting the most of the information. I don't think they're getting...
They're the consumers of your product, though.
Sure.
Which does make them a fan of your shit.
Yeah, but they're not the ones that show up to retreats. They're not the ones who buy in, and so fuck them. I don't give any attention to negative comments. I don't respond back. I will happily block you. I do not care. Move on. There's somewhere else you can go find this to do. I don't respond to negative comments in any way, never have, and therefore, I mean... After this many years of doing online shit, I don't get trolled.
I hear you doing breathing work over there. What was that?
No, I'm just sitting. Was I doing that?
I heard you breathe. That's funny.
Yeah, I'm vibing.
So
relaxing.
I like that. That's my wife uses that term. Wears contacts, and so in the evening, whenever she pops her eyes out and can't see shit, and like we're hanging out, a lot of times I joke and I'm like, oh, you've shifted to audio only tonight? So she's just laying there and just kind of listening to whatever we have on TV or listening to or anything. And she's like, I'm just vibing.
Yeah.
you do that
Like, right on.
I do that.
every night. Yeah.
Yeah.
She gets super baked before bed and she pregame sleep
Same.
on the couch.
Yeah, cannabis has been a wonderful tool.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
I wish that it didn't give me anxiety the way that it did.
Oh, it helps with back pain too.
What anxiety shows up?
I get heart palpitations
And paranoia.
and paranoia.
What's paranoia around? The heart palpitation?
Looking stupid.
Slightly heart palpitations, but honestly, it's me losing my faculties. Self-perception. I have experienced ego death through psychedelics a lot.
Okay.
And I am a huge psychedelics fan. Psilocybin is one of the greatest medicines on the planet.
No fucking doubt.
But when I partake in cannabis, even if it's a 1-to-1 ratio of a high CBD, as soon as I am aware of my existence, I have to overthink everything and I can't enjoy it. I can't even send a 1-sentence text message without reading it for 15 minutes. Like
Fascinating.
it's so bad.
That's you when you're stoned. That's my daily existence.
I hate it so much.
That's wild. Being stoned helps me come out of that. I'm so aware of my existence and my consciousness. The fact that people can formulate memories of me bothers me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being like smoking helps me come out of that paranoid mindset. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Mine just, I treat it like just down regulation. Especially if I'm, whether it's alcohol or fucking anything you use, right? Like I think it comes down to, are you using that tool to connect or disconnect? And I want to avoid from things that I'm using to disconnect. So smoking in the evening, I'm not trying to disconnect from my bullshit. I'm trying to connect more with being present and how lovely it is that I have a home and that I have a warm bed to sleep in and that me and my chick are together.
Yeah.
And being present in that. Or connecting more to creativity, depending on what the work is I need to get done. I think things are performance enhancers. I think weed can help me with a lot of the writing I do or creative ideas for designs or any of this other number of things. I just don't think it's great if I need to make a cross-country drive, right? Like, right tool for the job.
Yeah. I think if I was to get on it, like if I was to smoke or eat an edible every day for like 2 or 3 weeks, that paranoia would subside and I would be normal. I would be okay with being on it. But like right now, I took a 1-to-1 gummy the other night because she ate an edible. She had like a 100-milligram brownie, and we did a conspiracy theory podcast on Patreon. It was a lot of fun. Everybody's in here giggling and shit. And we went home, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna just see. I haven't had one of these in a while. I have my medical card. It's legal for me. And I took my 1-to-1 gummy and I sat down and I was vibing for like an hour and a half. And when I went to stand up, the world had like glitched to catch up to my existence. It was very weird, and I did not like that at all.
How does that compare to your feelings with psilocybin when the world glitches?
It doesn't do that to me when I'm on psilocybin. I don't have that effect. I become, oh man, I don't even know how to explain that. I hyper focus hard when I'm on psilocybin, but not from a place of anxiety. I become aware of everything. Like you can have a conversation with somebody and I can really read between the lines when I'm on mushrooms.
Yeah, I can hear their intention.
Right. It's very different. But I've also done a lot of guide work. I've read, I don't want to say every book, but I've probably read 100 books on psychonauts and all of that, and understanding guide and having guides and being one for people and being a sitter and setting. And I understand all of that because I've been doing psychedelics since I was like 13 years old.
Holy fuck. I can't even imagine jumping into it at that age. Like,
Right.
I mean, I think I guess typically I would say lucky enough, but who knows? I didn't get exposed to anything really until post college. And then because I was on a track and field scholarship, really didn't use anything. I mean, other than drank a shitload, which is totally acceptable in our culture.
Yeah.
I don't know why we back that drug, man.
Yeah,
Fuck.
I don't either.
It's such a bad one.
I enjoy my whiskey flavor, and I will allow myself 3 drinks a week, but I very rarely actually take all 3.
Yeah,
and I have a huge whiskey collection.
I bet I have 10 drinks a year at this point, at fucking most. It just, now it has to be an experience that, like, I know it's moving to one of my top experiences, and the alcohol is part of that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if we're in Scotland or somewhere and touring a brewery, and I'm going to have a fucking drink.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's about collecting the bottles. I have a very, very extensive collection, so much so that I had a whiskey wall built into my house, and I collect bottles. And we go bottle hunting. It's something that we do on vacation, but I very rarely open them. My friends drink my whiskey more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's just about the collection to me.
In a former life, when I was doing outside sales, I drank quite a bit more. Yeah, I would buy whiskey as gifts or bourbon as gifts for clients, so that I didn't have to take them hunting.
It makes sense.
Not that I'm against hunting. I just didn't want to go spend a weekend with them when I could
Yeah.
drop a thing off and then go back and do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice bottle of Pappy or something like that. Yeah,
Just giving away bottles of Pappy.
that's what I was doing.
Holy shit.
So I had a buddy. I had a buddy at the time who was a general manager at a Whole Foods in Baton Rouge, and so he would call me whenever they got their shipments of Pappy, and I would go buy all of them.
Oh, so you'd get them at retail?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a very different conversation.
Yep, I would go buy all of them, and then I'd give them out to customers, whether 15 or 12 or the B lot B or the 23 or
Yeah, that's
some of them never quite made it to customers.
Yeah, I would believe that secondhand market, the 23 and 25-year-old bottles are like, $3,000-$4,000 second.
Yeah, I never sold one. That seems dumb now.
Yeah.
But it seemed weird that my company that seemed shitty.
Yeah, it would.
And that's a line that like, that feels gross, right? Like when you say it out loud, it feels gross. What the fuck are you doing, man? Like have the awareness around that feeling.
That's funny. Yep. Secondhand market for bourbon is very crazy.
The bottles are expensive.
Yeah.
You can just buy the empty bottle and it's worth something to people, which amazes me.
I had a 20-year Michter's, and it was secondhand was $1,700, and it came with a box, and the box that it came in was going for $300 on eBay. The bottle itself was going for $800. I guess people buy the bottles in the box and refill them and sell them.
Refill them?
Yeah. Yeah, they refill them or sell them as like an open box, like an open bottle. I had a
because most people have never actually drank the good stuff, so they don't know any better to tell you that this isn't it.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Also, where would you go verify that?
Right. Like I just
there's no way to check someone.
I don't do scummy things.
Yeah.
Right.
So I am always just absolutely flabbergasted when I hear of people doing things like that, because I killed a frog yesterday.
Oh, she's
like with your car or like
no,
with a hammer?
I was I was pruning my plants.
Okay.
And I was deliberately checking because I know they get into I have tropical plants like monsteras and elephant's ears. And I'm peeking into the little crevices because I know frogs make their homes in there sometimes. And I went up to one of my plants and I didn't think to look underneath the thick stem before I chopped it. And I did. And I cut the guy's legs right off.
Shit.
And he was still alive. And I went inside. I didn't know he was still alive. I thought he was dead. And I went inside and I was just sobbing. And I went back outside and he was still alive. And I went back inside and I started crying again. I was like, now I don't know what to do. I cut a frog's legs off.
Yeah.
And I was a fucking mess about it. I couldn't imagine intentionally doing people dirty.
Yeah.
And then laying down at night and going, yeah, today was a good day. Let's do this again tomorrow.
So I spent a lot of years bouncing, working in clubs, DJing in a strip club, and for sure some of what you choose to do changes based on environment you're in.
Absolutely.
Right? I love that empathy with the animal and that choose not to do scummy things. Someone who wants to not fake box up, right? But purposely deceive someone else by selling this thing. I believe it'll all work out in the long run for that person anyway. But also if you're hot on spending $4,000 on a box to put on the shelf so other people see that you've bought a thing, you get what you deserve to.
Yeah. Yeah, all of my expensive whiskeys were always drank first.
Hell yeah, they should be.
People are like, why would you spend $2,000 on a bottle? It's going to be gone in a month. I'm like, because I got to experience that. That $2,000 is going to get spent on something else anyways. I might as well get to say that I got to drink a bottle of Michter's that's 20 year. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
or a 17-year Eagle Rare. Like,
yeah, I use all of that idea with this concept of like, I want to be a traveler and not a fucking tourist. The tourist wants to collect the merit badge and fucking say, look at the stamps in my passport and look at this photo of me here. And especially as much as I've traveled, seeing people go for the selfie is a lot and not be actually present in the experience. One of the ways I've fixed that is I've hired a guy that travels with me and takes my photo so that I can be in the experience.
That's so funny that you said that. I'm talking to a photographer from Tampa right now about that.
Yeah. Yeah, help with content creation is great.
Do you really think that investment's worth it?
It has been for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it has been for me. That gives me less time sitting in front of the video editing machine and doing all that type of stuff. I think it's important to know how to do those things so that you can communicate to the person that you want to work with of what you're looking to get.
Right.
Instead of being that asshole that goes to the tattoo shop and says, I want something cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. I own a tattoo shop. I get that. I've
been
in the
I tattooed for a couple
so.
years. Yeah. But being that tourist that just wants that moment, like that's for other people.
Right. It is.
Whereas like being the traveler, back to the Alan Watts thing about once you get the message, like you have to integrate. Like I want to take the pieces of little culture that I've spent here and realize that like I'm at my happiest doing this. Why the fuck do I care about what this car looks like?
Right.
You know, buying a van isn't what my first luxury vehicle now is a van. This isn't what
Pretty
I would have
fucking
thought.
cool though,
it's
bro.
a super fucking cool van, or it has the potential to be a fucking cool van. And the truth is, the van isn't it. It's the experience that I get to share with my wife in that van.
Right.
It is the stories we get to have. It's the travel we get to experience. Not only that, it's who I get to share the van with. It's being able to let my friends borrow it
Yeah.
and let them find the magic.
Yep. I get it. You're preaching to the choir on this one, dude. That van is the coolest thing I have ever bought, and I've owned $150,000 vehicles. That van is the coolest
Well, look,
thing
I think
I've
it's
owned.
great knowing that that wasn't the thing.
No, dude.
Right? Like, cool, we don't have to do that again.
Yeah.
We don't have to scratch that itch later on the road. And maybe now you won't. I won't give a shit. It'll be a fucking car, and I'll treat it like a hammer
Yep.
in 6 weeks.
Yeah. That van was that was probably one of the coolest purchases I've ever made. But that's also a step towards what I want for my retirement. Yeah, we are torn right now between having land and a homestead and having that travel.
Well, I do both.
Yeah, well, and that's the discussion we're having. We've talked to a couple of our close friends, and I think that we might end up buying like 50 acres in Tennessee and getting people to just put what they can down. Because if I
Sure.
can buy the land myself and somebody can give me $5,000, I can give them 5 acres. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
And if we could get 10 people or 5 people on 50 acres and everybody is involved like a commune without the communism, and we can have that, I think it would be super dope to have a gun range and dirt bike riding and our own garden and solar set up and a well and like...
Cows and goats and chickens.
Right.
And
As I would say,
crops.
build your universe.
That's it. So
Like, I think everyone should.
get a
I think
couple...
Most people don't even know what the fuck it would look like if they were given the opportunity.
Right. Well, that's because most people haven't gotten that far ahead in life to think that they are going to actually be able to obtain it.
Well, but sure, but like we're now talking about like some fucking giant grasp, right? Of like 50 acres and building this disappearing off-grid spot. But how many people are unintentional with the universe that's inside their house? Like, how about filling that with the stuff that actually refills your energy? How about being intentional with any of the space that you have instead of it needing to look a certain way for the people who don't fucking live there?
Yeah. I get that. We talk about that a lot with the relationships. Living with intent is very different than just existing. And I think people get complacent and it's just their life. This is why people have 20-year marriages that are shit. Because they're
Autopilot.
They're on autopilot. That's exactly it. They've accepted what their reality is. They have just enough comfort to exist. And they don't go, okay, how do I improve? What's next? Like, where's the next phase of our life? That van is the next phase of our life. Even if that means we homeschool the kids and we travel for the next 2 years and then I sell the van.
Who cares?
Right? I got to experience that. The kids got to experience real life. We looked into going to Bali for a year.
Yeah.
We priced that out, and it's actually doable for us right now. But that comes down to getting passports for the kids and trying to figure out that life experience. And we looked into Costa Rica, even though I really hate the tropical heat. I need to be like...
Well, Bali's going to be about the same.
I know, but I get to say that I got to live in Indonesia for a little while, and I'll get to experience that culture. My tattoo love comes from tribal culture.
Sure.
And I know that the last living headhunters were in Indonesia, the Dayak tribe. So like there's something for that for me that's not going to ever be experienced by anyone else by me being there. And I get that. But I want to be able to do these things and be able to provide that for our kids. So when our kids are 25, 30 years old, they're not going to be impressed with some stupid ass car or your Jordans. You know what I mean?
Who knows, right? Like, I mean, that's still their own perception in life. You can do the best you can.
Yeah. I just don't want them to be bamboozled by nonsense. I want them to have a life experience that's beyond
I want them to be
our
cultured.
own. Yeah.
I want them to
Bamboozled
have
by nonsense.
knowledge.
Yeah.
I want them to have perspectives that aren't just
Fed to them.
American.
Yeah.
And government and
Well, it's a real interesting one we have here, right? Well,
Yeah.
I hate to keep picking on the guy, but I did a podcast a couple months ago, and I reference it now. But very pro-America podcast. I wouldn't say I'm not, but it's the fucking place I live.
Yeah.
And so one of the questions he has for me is like, why America? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, where are we starting this? And he's like, well, I think America is the greatest country on earth, and I think this, and this, and, so what do you think? And I just responded, I was like, oh, I think that's awesome. I was like, so where all have you been?
Right.
Like, well, I don't have a passport. I was like, no shit.
Mm-hmm.
So America's also the worst country you've ever fucking been to as well. And I love America for opportunity and landscape and this incredible fucking country, and the fact that I was lucky enough to be born here to two parents in 1983 that fucking loved me. Since then, I'm doing okay. I haven't done anything fucking incredible.
Right.
But Americans, I don't care for that much.
The only thing I've heard from foreigners that they genuinely like about Americans is that we are kind and we smile at people. Otherwise, we are loud. We take up space. We think we need all of the attention. We're fat. Yeah.
Well, but even traveling, right? Like, where have you guys all traveled to?
Well, I've been into like a lot of the Caribbean. I've been down to South America. I've been in Europe.
Well, I mean, look what we normalize as like a normal-sized home in this country. Mm-hmm. And how much space we fucking have. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I've actually talked about that quite a bit. We have smaller families and larger homes than we've ever had. Mm-hmm. In
more
the 80s,
isolation?
Right, and more isolation.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And in the 80s, the average like apartment was only 800 square feet, and you would have a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom thing in there. Like that was my reality here.
Yeah.
However, when I lived in Maryland on a farm that was fucking thousands of acres, it was a 3-story house, but it had multiple generations and cousins and shit living in that. You know what I mean? And then we all worked together. It wasn't.
Right.
So I think that it really does come down to your perspective. I haven't left the country. I've been to Hawaii a couple of times. I want to go to Scotland. We got our passports and we're going to start traveling this year hopefully traveling this year. But I want to experience that. But I've had a lot of conversations with people outside of our culture, and a lot of them have all said the same thing. Family matters more everywhere else on the planet than it does here. We are so fucking disconnected from people because we have abundance.
And we're selfish.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with both, and all of my travel has led me to see all that seems to be pretty true about us.
Yeah.
I think it's a bummer that a big part of our problem is not knowing how to handle abundance. That's why we're fucking fat. Because we're a buffet culture, man.
Yeah.
There's no moderation.
No, we don't moderate at all. We always finish a bite full instead of a bite hungry.
A bite full?
Yeah.
No, bro, I eat until I'm ready to puke on myself.
Yeah, I've done that plenty of times too. I didn't accidentally weigh 320 fucking pounds.
Yeah, I was 320 at my biggest too.
I was 340
No fucking way, really? Yeah. Well done.
at my highest, yeah.
Well fucking done, dude.
Thank you.
But like that alone, right? Like that's proof that fucking people can change.
Yep.
That I can install new habits and not just change this physical aspect of myself, but the internal starts to change too.
Yeah.
And once that internal change, the external really starts to show up. But
there was this.
Go ahead.
There was this really weird awakening that I had when I started my like healthy eating journey, because I was a binge eater. I still have a hard time with not overeating. Mm-hmm. I would get a large pizza from Pizza Hut. I would get chicken nuggets and French fries from McDonald's, and then I would get Taco Bell, and I would eat all of that. Get to the point where I take like a 10 or 15 minute break and then finish it, and then 2 hours later I'm in my fridge eating again. Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
When I started clean eating and I started incorporating more chicken and beef and rice and vegetables into my diet, my mental fog lifted. The things that we are putting in our body, the McDonald's, it's not even chicken anymore.
No.
It's paste.
It is.
Well, because the God we pray to in this country is maximize profit. Mm-hmm. And that makes maximizing profit easier because that means every chicken nugget's exactly the same.
Yep. Same thing with their burgers. It's got ammonia in them.
Yep. It's got to be repeatable. But that's part of what makes McDonald's great, is that I can buy the same exact fucking burger anywhere on earth.
Yep. Well, anywhere in America. It's different in other countries.
I've noticed that as well.
Yeah. I've also recognized that I don't enjoy fast food anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we'll eat it because we are recording until 11 o'clock at night.
Sure.
We're not cooking for 2 hours until midnight. We're going to eat Taco Bell for dinner. And every time we eat Taco Bell, this is trash.
Yeah, every time.
Right.
And we feel like shit afterwards every time. But
I love it, though. I love Taco Bell so
I do too.
much.
That's by far my guilty.
Yeah.
Is fucking Taco Bell.
But
How
we're-
great. You have like 9 ingredients and 50 things on the menu. This is a fucking
Yeah.
brilliant
And
business
it's
strategy.
cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are pretty much all grass fed with our beef now. Anything that's cooked in the house is all organic and grass fed, and we're trying to be more conscious with what we're doing. But like she said, there's days where we record for 15 hours, where I'm editing. And
That's where it's
recording
have a couple meal prep things.
yeah. Well, I do have a couple meal prep companies, but we just bought an entire cow of grass fed beef.
Oh, nice work.
So we have an entire deep freezer, and the freezer in our kitchen is full of beef right now. So
Yeah, I kind of shifted it once I decided to lose weight. I shifted over into keto diet for a long time, and then carnivore, and have kind of danced around back and forth.
Yeah.
It's like first choice would be carnivore, and then default from there would be more keto, and then if the next line of defense needs to be had, it's macros.
yeah,
But
Yeah.
overall, it still now really has to try to follow. I want to be able to at least identify everything on my plate as an ingredient.
right, as actual food,
Right.
Yeah.
That's a broccoli. That's a cow. That's a fucking sweet potato.
right? That's funny.
And I've noticed that makes a huge difference and simplified things a lot from me. Also, I'm not looking for food to be my fucking comfort anymore.
Yeah, it's fuel.
It's fuel.
Yep.
And that mindset shift helped a lot.
Yeah. That was us when we lost all the weight. That was us. I got down right before I tore my pec, I was down to 212 and I was 10% body fat.
Oh, shit.
I was fucking big. And I didn't realize how big I was because in my head, I have body dysmorphia. I was always
Join the club.
320. And I posted the video in Discord where I tore my pec the other day and she walked by and I paused it. I'm like, look at this shit. And she's like, what? I was like, I was fucking huge. Like at 212, I was big. Like she's like, babe, you always look like that. And I'm like, no, I don't. Because even at that time, I didn't feel like I looked like that. I still saw a fat ass in the mirror. Like I didn't walk around the house without a shirt on. I had abs.
Yeah.
Like, and I still wore my shirt. And
I
talk shit.
Look,
so.
I feel I'm 100% on board with everything you're saying. That's still the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I notice a lot of mine came from one of my mentors being my brother, right? Like, what an incredible overachiever. But I also understand that because I looked up to him and I set what he did as normal and not exceptional, that it made a tough act to follow. My brother being 6'5" and 300 pounds when he graduated high school, and an All-American in 2 sports, and then going to play college football at Texas A&M, and then going to the NFL, and being a valedictorian, as well as marrying his high school sweetheart and any number of things, and being pre-law when he got out of college. There wasn't anyone confused whether or not Matt was going to become a fucking lawyer.
Yeah.
The educational system wasn't great for me. And fuck, it's even annoying that I say that, because I'm using that as a comparison to my brother, who's a fucking valedictorian and was going to be a lawyer. I still graduated college with like a 3.0. I had a 31 on my ACT and fucking graduated high school with an A average. But I consider that as I'm fucking dumb.
Because your brother did
Yep.
more.
And so on the scale of being big, I've never been big.
Right.
I'm the fucking run of the litter. And even being now, 6 foot and I'm 220-ish, I have no idea what my body fat is. But I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. And I can recognize it now, but also, not the same. I still see the fat.
Yep. That's the voice in our heads, though.
Yeah, he's a liar.
Yep.
He lies all the time, man. He doesn't want to train. He doesn't want to do any type of shit. And I just wave at him now. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, more. That's something that I'm still working on. I'm getting better with it though, and even on days like, even though I tore my pec, the doctor told me I needed to quit training. He's like, you need to let that heal, and I'm like, no.
Doctors are interested in not being sued.
Yeah, he was
This
like,
is what we've become.
he's like, how did you tear it? And I was like, I was doing dips with 3 plates around my waist, and he's like, you realize you're 42 now, right? And I'm like, yeah, and. He's like, you don't need to be doing that. He's like, you need to go do machine work and blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
I don't remember asking you.
Right. I was like, that's pussy shit,
that
bro.
help?
Like, I'm not doing that. And he's like, well, you need to take time off. And I'm like, okay. I was like, do I need surgery? And he's like, I mean, it would probably not be a bad idea if it tears more, but it's still at least 50% attached. Just deal with it. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I did. And I went home, and the next morning we were in the gym, and I just worked around my injury. I haven't stopped the entire year, but I'm just now to the point where I can lift without pain.
Yep.
So now it's go time again. And,
Well,
but not 3 plates around the waist doing dips and not doing, 425 on a bench. Like I am training smarter, because that will never be 100% again, but I'm also not going to go in there and just do the minimum and go out,
Right. There's still got to be a discomfort to create the adaptation.
And I'm lucky that I have that motivation by proxy, because she lifts with me and I can't look like a puss in front of my woman.
Especially if I go up in weight, I can't get too close to you.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
it's so funny.
It's so stupid. And that's very much my mindset. There's days that I'll go in there and I'll be like, oh, you went up in weight? And she'll be like, yep. And I'm like, okay, fucking.
It really helped me being around strong people.
Yeah.
Fucking even saying that sentence like that's not fair enough. But like, I've never been the strongest in any of the gyms I was in. But also when I'm powerlifting, I was training with Gary Frank and his group down in Louisiana, if you're familiar with him. And then strongman or anything else, my friends are Hapthor Bjornsson and
Oh, wow.
other guys. So like, no, I'm not good at any of this
Yeah.
shit. Like, I know what good at this looks like. Good's pulling 900 pounds.
Right.
Ain't in the fucking cards for me.
Nope. But it's motivating in it.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I look at it now, right? Is I want to see people excel at what they're fucking great at. And seeing someone like him who, what physical gifts he was given to be 6'10" and have a frame that can hold 460
Right.
fucking pounds. And then the work ethic. I'm wildly impressed by Hapthor, and I've known him since 2008. First time I went over to Iceland to compete, the guy hosting the show and is like, we have a local strongman coming out, big guy. He's going to throw keg over bar and try to break a record. And I'm like, he's throwing things for a record? I'll get in on that.
Yeah.
Like, fuck him, right? You
Yeah.
know? And then I watch him shoehorn it, like squeeze out of this 2-door car when he pulls up, and I'm like, fuck, all right. Can he do anything? And sure enough, he's fine. We threw a keg for height over a bar, and I lost by like almost 4 meters.
Wow.
It's a shit beat out of me.
That's awesome.
And I love the fact that I think it would have been really easy to have been just the mountain from Game of Thrones. And I think it would have been really easy just to have been World's Strongest Man. But then you decided to publicly go into boxing, a thing you suck at, that you're not
Right.
built to do good at. And you still did it. Like, fucking Hapthor will do anything he sets his mind to.
Yeah, Brian Shaw's the same way. It's funny that you say that, because in the same breath, you could have seen him get out of that car and been like, yeah, I'm not going to throw today.
Fuck that.
Right. Right.
I've lost before.
Yeah, you lose again.
Losing doesn't
Life.
matter.
Yep. Yeah, that's funny.
I mean, well, all success, like that path or whatever it is to success is just covered in pebbles of failure.
That's how we
That's
get
the
better.
way it works, right? Like the universe is going to continually show up with obstacles that force you to find discomfort and get better. That's the universe saying, is this really what you fucking want? Or only when it's easy and convenient?
Right. Yep. I think the universe gets out of your way when it realizes that you're not fucking stopping.
I don't want it out of the way. I want it. Come with me, man.
Yeah. Push you.
I want to vibe with you. I want to flow with it. I want to be able to listen and adapt and change whenever things go like, oh, maybe that's not going to be what we do anymore.
Yeah. I think that people, when they get that little bit of pushback from the universe, quits.
I
And
think a lot of people do.
that's the problem. When I tell people all the time with business, they're like, oh, I want to be a business owner. I'm like, okay, and they're like, well, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, and what? Why haven't you? And they're like, well, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, did you start an LLC yet? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, then do that.
How about pick one step?
Right. And then they'll create their LLC and they'll go, okay, now what? I'm like,
How about
"Got
sell
insurance?"
a thing?
Yeah, you got insurance? No, get your insurance. Okay, now what? Okay, well, you're a metal fabricator, right? Build something. Put it on marketplace and sell the shit. The moment you make money on it, you're a professional at your job. Build your portfolio, get going. And as you're doing these things, like, dude, when I first opened my first tattoo shop, I had no money. Like, I had the equipment.
Of course.
And I like did everything I could. And when we opened, I had 7 cents in the bank. I was fucking broke. This was make or break, but we thrived because I'm not waiting on things to do for me. I'm going to fucking do it. And I think that as that resistance started to get less and less and it became more real for me, I am unstoppable now.
Well, that's the motherfucker,
Right.
you know? And when that gets paired without the negative voice and it gets paired with gratitude,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a much different tool.
Yeah. You really do you feel like you can do anything with nothing. It's a great thing, and it changes your perspective. And I think that that's what makes real mentors, is people who have done it and who have failed and who've done it again, because they can speak from experience on the loss of all of it. And having that person who has failed 50 times in life go, hey, skip this step, skip that step, this is not important, and you get to negate those failures, you already have a leg up, and all it takes is somebody else's information and you being willing to listen and implement. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that because they feel like they know everything.
Yeah, it was something recently got said at our last retreat was the student often responds with "I know," and the master responds with "Thanks for the reminder."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's always time to sharpen the axe.
Yeah.
There's always more dragons to slay, and that's what the hero fucking does on the hero's journey. And for me, I think it's really scary that in our culture that we want people to have an idea of like, you're forever home, you're forever job, you're forever everything when you're 26.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And then when you have that mindset and you don't have it at 26, everything is a meltdown.
Oh, and then you're a failure.
Yep.
You're behind. I'm blowing it. I'm not doing anything, man. Why can't we embrace the fact that we're supposed to change and that our life is like chapters in a book, right? And if every 10, for me, it's kind of somewhere between 7 and 12 years becomes about a chapter, but as long as dogs live. I think it's a really good factor to look at.
New dog, new chapter.
Yeah. And I mean, through that course of growth, being able to choose when you actually want to close a chapter. Very few people ever do. Most people go to school because this is where they were supposed to be, where they were sent, from where they grew up. You know, it has some relation to another choice that was made by the universe before they got here, where their parents lived, what they were into, their income level, any number of things. We quit high school sports because, well, you fucking have to. We quit college sports because you have to. We quit college because you have to. We quit doing these things. But once people get out of college and get that first job, very few people quit something to move on to something else they want.
Right.
And you feel like it's supposed to just work out because of, oh, I'm working hard. Working hard doesn't mean shit. That's not guaranteed success. Working hard with intention will guarantee progress. And progress is what we're chasing. Success is fucking fugazi.
Yeah.
It's made up.
Success is different for everyone though. And
you have to define it.
Right.
You know, I know. What's your definition?
Being a success for me is financial freedom, which is a very broad statement. But for me, that just means not having to take my bills off auto pay, right? Because I don't have to worry about finances. But the bigger picture in that is being a provider and a protector for my family, being a good husband, being the man that my children can come to and have a conversation with, even though it might be hard for them to do so, knowing that I'm going to be there. We could live in a cardboard box, and if we have each other and we have what we have currently, it's not going to matter because I know that we're going to bounce back. But I know that if she's having a bad day, she can come to me. Yep. And I know that on the days that my demons are winning, she sees that and is able to nurture the best of her ability. Right? We have something that a lot of people will never experience, and I'm very grateful for that. So my success in life is making sure that we have the family dynamic figured out.
So how do you guys in your relationship, and since that's mostly what you guys do with coaching, right, is or what the podcast is about, how do you hold space for your partner but not let their energy affect you?
Well, we both have borderline personality disorder. Okay. So that's a fucking mess at times.
Yeah.
And that makes things to an extreme. However, the biggest thing for us is the honest and communicating. We have, I need to be an asshole right now because I don't know how else to say this. And that's the times where we really need to just get it out. And then we understand that in those moments, we're not attacking each other. It's just a conversation and there's no nice way to put things. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it's checking in with each other on a regular basis. How's your mental health? How's your spiritual health right now? Is there anything,
how did you wake up this morning?
Right. Is there anything I can do to be a better husband? How have I served you? Am I not serving you the way that I need to? We are very open in our communicative process in that we don't take any of it personal.
We also don't badger.
No.
We are aware if I'm not ready to talk about it, okay. If
right.
and when the other is ready to talk about it, we will. We don't push, we don't take things personally either. So if he's having an off day, I logically have to tell myself it's not my fault. I have to be the stable pull within this hurricane that he's going through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not my job to fix.
Right. Right. There's a book called Stop Walking on Eggshells, and it's a book written for people who are in a relationship with someone who has borderline. And one of the biggest takeaways from that book is when your person's going through it, you can't go through it with them. You have to just step back and let them ride the roller coaster until they get off of it.
Well, drowning people don't mean to drown people trying to help them.
But they do.
They just do.
Right. But we have a lot of, in the event where there's a abandonment issue, because it's part of our borderline that kicks in, we'll just simply go, look, is this something that I've done? And is this something I need to be worried about? Because we're not leaving.
Right.
We know we're not leaving. Divorce isn't even something we joke about in our home. So I know she's not going anywhere, but I just need to hear that, like, this is not that big of a deal. You're just processing your shit, and we'll talk about it when it's over so that my abandonment doesn't kick in or hers doesn't kick in. But we're also very good about going, look, I'm processing this, and once I get to the root of what the issue is, we'll have a discussion. But until then, we're going to argue about superficial shit that doesn't really matter.
And with both of us having borderline, we both know it could be the simplest thing that could trigger us.
Yeah.
So he could have ordered a bacon burger sandwich and they only gave him 2 slices of bacon versus 4 slices of bacon. And he's already having a bad day, and that could really set him off to just really being like, I'm fucking over this. Mm-hmm. It's purely an example. And I go through the same things. If I step in water in a sock, I'm going to have a bad 3 fucking hours. I can't. And we recognize those things too. We don't go, that's so stupid. You shouldn't be upset about that. Babe, it's just water.
Fuck that shouldn't be shit.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel what you're feeling.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that with our relationship too, the safer we have become with each other, because of the communication that we have, the less these things really affect. Mm-hmm. I'm one of those people that if you call and go, hey, we need to talk when you get home. No, fuck that. We need to talk now. Yeah, you just open that fucking
How fucking
box.
dare
We're
you?
talking. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now that's not the case.
Yeah, you drop that anxiety bomb on me for the rest of the day. How fucking dare you? Learn to communicate better.
Yep. So we don't do things like that. But if she was to call me and go, hey, there's some things I want to run by you when we get home, I'm not anxious over it anymore. Like she wants new Christmas lights, right? Like,
or $1,000 for Crocs.
Which has been a conversation. I fucking hate them, but it's been a conversation. Hey, babe, I want to go walk around Lowe's with my purse and pick up plant clippings. That could be the thing she wants to talk about, but because I'm busy right now, she's telling me that she wants to talk to me later so that I will remind her to tell me what she's going through later. Yeah. Because we want to reconnect because I've been gone all day or she's been gone all day. I don't have that. Oh God, what's happening now? The world is falling apart, because I know that that's not my partner. We don't live
in fight or flight.
Right, at all, because we have a team dynamic. I know that if it's important, she's going to be like, step away from everyone and call me right back. Okay, that's important. Now my anxiety's going, we're going, right? We need to talk later about, I want to run something by you or whatever. I don't panic about that at all anymore. And that's something that's very new to me in my life, because that's never been the case. You tell me we need to talk, we're going.
Yeah.
So,
and 9 times out of 10, it's business related when it's something like that.
It almost always is.
Yeah.
Or it's something really, really off the wall that she just doesn't want to have the conversation over the phone, or I just need to be reminded to bring this up later. Because I multitask like you do. I'm very scatterbrained, ADHD hard. There are a lot of times. Huh?
The cold will help.
Yeah. There are times where I'm like, hey, I need you to remind me of this later, which I did it earlier in the podcast. And when we go back through and edit this, I'll say that and it'll trigger that thought and I'll be able to have the conversation with her. But there are conversations that just need to be had away from everybody else so that we can process. We have our work council when we need to, or we sit down and we strategize to try to figure out how we're going to move things forward. And even though as a man, it is my duty to lead, it is also my responsibility when things fail. So like, I don't ever just make a decision without her. We talk about them and then I plan my attack accordingly. And sometimes I'll make the final decision without her, but she's always informed. We are very open and talking about everything. There's not anything that happens in our life that we haven't discussed, rehashed, and brought back, because there's not a fear in talking about it. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of that just comes down to knowing that this is not a short-term thing for us. We're in this forever. So
I love that.
Yeah. I'm like super hot sitting in your lap when you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah, blowing on a tube to get us around.
Whatever we got to do.
Whatever works, man.
Yeah.
What you said there about like, I'm going to have the conversation, but I still make whatever decision because I'm responsible to it. Like that part too. Like, and that goes for both, right? Yep. Like, one of the things Bonnie and I talk about like that is with radical accountability, like no one gets a vote. I'm interested to hear everyone's opinion and formulate my own decision, but at the end of the day, I made that fucking choice.
Right.
I'm responsible for whatever comes up because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, if I feel the need that I want to rent a van and go spend a week in it to be by myself, no one gets a vote.
Right.
I'm a goddamn grown-up. I go do what I want to do. I would love for her to be supportive of it, but if also this is what I feel I need in the moment, we're at a place in our relationship where she would say, I think you should go.
Right. And that comes down to a discussion too, though. Like, it's not like you're just grabbing the van.
No, I'm not showing up and just walking in the room and like, I'm fucking out of here, man.
Well, and that's the disconnect that a lot of people have. When you tell a man that he's supposed to lead his home, that's where their brain goes. But again,
It goes to dictator.
Right. That's the difference between being a leader and a boss.
Right.
You know, you can't lead from the back. You have to run your home and run by example. You are setting a standard in your home. And if that's how you're living, you can't be mad when your wife and kids are doing the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we talk about that quite heavily. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, because that decision-making means that all the failures are yours. Even if they tell you, like, hey, this is a bad idea, and you do it, you did that. If everybody agrees it's a bad idea and you make the decision to not do shit, it's still your decision. You have to accept the wins and losses, and you can't throw that shit on other people. I am also of the mindset, though, that when we have a win, even though it was my decision to make, we all win.
Damn right.
When we lose, that's me. I lost. That's my fuck up. We're not doing that again. I'll figure out how to make things better. But I want to push that out to everyone around me, because I want everyone to feel that victory. I don't want to take all the credit. I don't want to eat while everyone else has scraps on them.
I know that triggered a thing for me, but also I know that I do the same. So I don't have anywhere to go with it. I'll have to think on that one.
We're 2 hours and 10 minutes into this.
Okay.
So
Wow.
where can people find you?
All the normal places online, right? MattVincent.net, notdeadyet.com. My Instagram is Matthew P. Vincent, and then our coaching group is notdeadyet_life. That's our community and coaching group, and we've got some courses there. Like I set up a morning routine course kind of based on this idea. Like, there's so much out there about morning routine and everything else, but I think, why wouldn't I take this intentional time every morning in the same way that I warm up to train to be able to have a better result when I do train? Why wouldn't I warm up with some movement, with some sunlight, with some drinking some fucking water, with having some breath work and sitting still, maybe writing in my journal, instead of immediately switching on to something else, getting an input to my energy,
Right.
the phone. So I try to avoid it for 2 hours, and I have a morning routine course. Just put out a new program called 90 Day Alchemist, which I'm really excited about. That one's been really fun. Has a lot more gratitude and stuff kind of built into it, and take adventures and things like that. And then we've got our next retreat, Idaho Exposure, will be September 13th through 16th in Fish Haven, Idaho. So it's like 2.5 hours north of Salt Lake. Really excited for that one. We'll have some other coaches and hosts there to help facilitate. I think we'll end up with probably like 40 to 50 people, and breath work and a little bit of training. Really, what I love with those things is we are choosing discomfort.
Right.
Conversation, we're choosing close quarters with other people we don't know. We are choosing all these things, and when we're in that, the autopilot is shut off.
Right.
And so you're hyper present and you're super aware. And so that 72 hours becomes this giant file folder in your head, because your brain can't fill in any gaps. And so once you do that and start implementing some of the gratitude work and hot and cold, and then by the final breath work of it, when you're disarmed and downregulated and tired, it just lets people reset.
I would love to do a retreat like that.
Yeah.
We'll talk more.
That would be really dope.
I would like to put you in contact with Mike from Force of Focus, if you don't mind me sending him your email address.
Yeah, I would love to.
He does a lot of he coaches coaches also.
Okay.
And he's just now creating his own podcast, but I think the two of you would have a very good conversation around business and marketing and things like that. And I think you would actually gain something from that as
I would love that. I'm happy to learn from as many people as possible.
Yeah. But with that being said, thank you so much for coming down here. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
No, man, this was great.
Yes, it was such a delight.
Thank you guys a ton.
And we'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye, guys.